Okay, hey, we're gonna go live, guys.
That's like the hardest thing in the world to get into. So I wasn't even expecting that.
Yeah, we weren't gonna get in that press conference. Hey, what's up, everyone? We are live. It's a Wednesday night. Welcome to another episode of BRAP Basement Radio OK podcast. We have a special guest. We have two special guests. I think Forte. I think and I forget his name, and I apologize.
Jeremy.
Yeah, Jeremy, our resident BRAP Sony PlayStation rep, should be joining us shortly. But we have a first time guest that we're really excited to have on. He is somebody that. What happened? Did the stream drop? Oh no, there it is. Sorry guys, I'm monitoring this stuff on the YouTube stream thing, whatever it is, and I don't know. I'm not a big YouTube fan, but it is what it is. Anyhow,
the dashboard.
The dashboard. Thank you, Forte. Thank you, Mr. Forte.
You're welcome.
Forte, it's good to hear your voice, man. It's always a pleasure, man.
Always great to hear yours.
Thank you, man. But yeah, we have a first.
A lot of love in the room tonight.
A lot of love. E. Jackson, good to hear you as well, man. AEW is live from Miami right now. Bash at the Beach.
Ew.
So yeah, I don't know if you're a wrestling fan, but
nice
anyhow,
balmy 80 degrees tonight.
Oh, dude, I'm jealous, man. I want to be in South Florida right now, dude. That's where I want to be. But yeah, we have a first time guest. We have a gentleman who is a longtime gamer. You know, probably been gaming a little bit longer than I have. My gaming history goes back to 1982 with the Atari 2600. But we have Optimus Code in the house. Optimus, man, what is going on?
Hey, how y'all doing, man? Happy to be here. Appreciate the invite.
Absolutely, man. Glad that you could join us tonight to talk about video games. We have some great topics for you guys tonight. We are going to talk a little bit about the hardware stuff that people have been talking about, because that's kind of been a hot button item, and we are going to also talk about Sony skipping E3. Much to my dismay, I'm disappointed. I'm not going to lie. If you guys don't know, me and Eric Jackson are going to be heading out to E3 2020 with the Iron Lords. Big shout out to the ILP with the season gaming crew, and Mads Gaming is actually going to be flying in from Europe to hang out with us, man. Yeah, that's awesome, man.
That is crap, bro. How you just literally skipped over me.
No, wait. I'm not. Well, I wasn't done yet. I wasn't. Save the I want to save the best for last. And
best for last? No, I want to hear that.
Nah, I'm gonna say the best. And gaming. Oop, you're botting, man.
Yeah, that bot was real.
Yeah, that bot. You were like, that's what it sounded like, man.
Bad.
Oh,
ooh, you're botting real bad.
Yo, what's up, baby?
All right, let me drop. I'll come back.
Now you sound good now.
You sound good now.
Oh, it's back there.
Yeah.
Comcast fix. You know, Comcast.
Yeah.
Comcast has been tripping the last few days, man.
Comcast is tripping the last 3 days. Sorry, Eric. Go ahead, man.
Oh no, I was just like, I was siding with Forte saying how nicely you cleaned that up just now.
Right.
Look, let me tell you something. Forte is like a brother to me, man. You know, even though we have different moms, Luca is his mom.
I was about to say, yeah, y'all got different mothers though.
Yeah, you know, but
well, you don't want you just not gonna accept that Luca's your mom too.
Luca's not my mom. She has never claimed that I'm her son. She is not my mom. So
she said you're adopted.
No, sir, that is not true. That's never happened. But I will say this: Gaming Forte will be joining us too at E3 2020, and like I said, man, I'm just really looking forward to meeting everyone at E3. Although, look, we're disappointed that Sony's not going to be there. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But like Eric said before he went live, hey, we probably weren't getting that show anyway. So
I wonder, did they make? Oh, there was. As far as I'm about to say, did they make it in last year? But oops, they weren't there last year.
No, they weren't there last year either. So
they weren't there last year.
Yeah. Big shout out to everyone in the live chat, by the way, guys. Thank you so much for spending your Wednesday evening with us. Looking forward to talking some video games. And Irrelevant Nate says, damn, I'll be fighting a lot of folks at E3 this year. Irrelevant, I'm not sure why you want to be fighting folks at E3. But okay.
It's very confrontational, that's all.
Yeah. Hey, Forte, can you turn up your mic just a little bit, sir? At least you sound a little bit low to me.
Sir.
There you go. Perfect, man. I appreciate that, bro.
All right. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome.
All right. So, but I want to go to our guest, Optimus Code. Optimus, you've been gaming for a long time, man, which I think is awesome. Like you know, I think the great thing about being a gamer in the late 70s and 80s is that we really did see a lot of, like evolutions, and I would say like revolutionary things in the gaming industry. You know, if you remember how we used to game on the Atari 2600.
So I'm gonna tell you a story real quick. My kids, this is when they were young. Like, so these were my kids, right? So like this was back in the 90s, the mid to late 90s. And we were playing the NBA Live, which was hot back then. And so they went over their grandmother's house and they pulled out my old Atari and they were playing it because all this stuff stayed at their house, at my parents' house. So when they came home, they was like, "Hey, Dad, guess what?" I was like, "What?" He's like, "We played this old video game system and we played basketball." And they were like, and it only had two men. And they had a square ball. And I just realized in that moment, like just how far games had come. And this was back in the 90s.
Right.
When I look at the stuff we do now, it's exactly like you said. We have lived through so many evolutions and revolutions of the video game content, man. It's just great to be a gamer.
It really is, man. I mean, we that leap from 2D to 3D. I mean, my God. I mean, I remember playing Mario 3D on the N64 for the first time and just being blown away. Like, wow. Like, this is, you know, I'm used to 2D side-scrolling Mario.
Yeah, man. Bro, I remember the first time they had parallax scrolling in the game, and I was just astonished by that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, because Rika's saying like what 2D to 3D. I mean, that leap from like Atari to like the 8-bit was like that was a big deal to have at home.
That was. It really was, man. I mean, and you know, developers did some wonderful things with the NES, that new hardware, and I mean, I remember Ninja Gaiden. I mean, that was really like one of the first games that implemented like a cinematic, cutscene. If you guys remember the intro of that game, you remember, and I mean, and that was just so, you know, revolutionary at the time. But I got to ask you, Optimus. So just being a gamer, gaming as long as you have, and this might be hard because I know it's a tough question for me if someone was to ask me, but I got to ask you, what is your favorite gaming console of all time, and what are your top 4 games or gaming franchises of all time?
Ooh wee.
I know it's not an easy question, man, because you've been doing it a long time, man, like us.
Yeah, man. I mean, because it's it's what's my favorite console of all time? Pick one.
Yeah, which one would be your first? Which one would be your firstborn?
Okay, my firstborn. That's a little better. Probably. If I had to choose, it would be either the PS1 or the PS2. I'm not sure.
You can't. I mean, those are great choices. You can't go wrong with either one.
But I really want to say the Genesis. Man, I had a lot of love for the Super Nintendo.
Woo!
I mean, I don't know, man. That's a hard question.
It's a loaded question. I know, man.
Yeah, like I would not choose either one. Back then in those days, right, I didn't choose between the Super Nintendo and the Genesis. I bought both. And that carries on to this day. I buy every console. So it's really difficult for me to imagine as if I had to live without.
Yeah. Dreamcast for me.
Yeah, I mean those are.
That might be mine too, man. It's just that whole
something about that system, man.
Dreamcast.
Veronica.
It was something about Dreamcast, man. It was
it was the ad campaign. It was just the games. It was just the way they were presented. It was just like it was just so much.
That little memory card was dope. It was
man.
The UMV was pretty high, bro.
Yeah.
I don't know, just something about. I mean, there's other systems that probably impacted me more, like NES and stuff. But when it came to Dreamcast, it was like the first system that I really like dug in and did the whole, because I think that was like, even when PS2 started online, Dreamcast was like, man, the Dreamcast online was
that Fantasy
Xbox Live before Xbox Live was there.
Yeah,
you talk about like being on that, I know we definitely give Microsoft the props with the Xbox for kind of being like where the puck's gonna be, not where it lies. But the Dreamcast, man, it had an Ethernet adapter like you could get if you were actually lucky enough to have like high speed internet at that time, which like a lot of people didn't. It was still dial up for a lot of people.
Oh, I was on dial up.
For me, I was
on dial up.
Yeah, and it probably had. You could argue this, but I mean, I think it had one of the best launch lineups ever.
I mean, absolutely, man. It was that like Forte was saying. It's like if you think about the campaign, how they did the ads. I mean, the ads were cool. I mean, I remember being on a date. I was in a theater and I saw like a promo cut in a movie theater, and it showed Sonic Adventure and it showed NFL 2K, and I was like, and I sat up and I was just like, damn, like it looked next level. I mean, you go back now, obviously not, but back then, I was like, I looked at 2K and I was like, I have not seen football that looked like that.
Dog, 2K. That probably is another reason why it's such up there, because 2K was pretty much born on that system.
Yeah,
and you would never know that before. I want to say before 2011, I played nothing but sports games back then. Nothing but.
Pretty. I was 989 football.
Yep, that's all I used to play with sports games back then.
Football and
all that, man. Yeah, what was on Xbox? NFL Fever.
Fever.
Yeah, man. Blitz. Whatever I could get my hands on, man, I was playing.
If y'all don't mind, I want to speak to something because I think this is important. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, none of video gaming is important, really, but if you're going to be a gamer, I think this is important to understand from a historical context. Mm-hmm. For many years, I mean, the media, mainstream media, just our society at large, we were in a place where the majority of the people felt that gaming was for children and that it was a child's activity.
Facts.
And what we found out, though, was the kids that played Nintendo, as they grew up, the expectation was that their hobbies would change into something that would be more mature or more acceptable at that time as being more mature. But what we found out was that as these kids that were playing Nintendo grew up, they still liked Nintendo once they were adults, and they wanted more adult content. Nintendo at the time also thought that game was for children, and so they didn't really allow mature content on their platform. And like the blood wasn't in Mortal Kombat and stuff like that. And the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2, they're the ones, Sony stepped in and introduced this notion that we accept that gaming is a hobby for adults. Mm-hmm. And they sort of opened the door for like all the stuff y'all talking about with the Dreamcast, which is great. And I agree 100% with y'all. I still have my Dreamcast. If we was on video, I could show it to you. The thing is that none of that would have been possible without Sony drawing that line in the sand, causing the mainstream and everyone to accept that this is a hobby for the adults with disposable income, and there's more than one type of game and mature gaming and all of that stuff. And so the reason that I say, and of course, as old as I am, y'all will realize that this was a big deal for me because I used to get a lot of the, you a grown man, what you doing playing with a Genesis and a Super Nintendo. Right. I got a lot of that. And so for me, the reason the PlayStation and the PS2 was so important is they help legitimize gaming for adults.
Absolutely, man.
That's a great point, man. Great point, Optimus, so we talked about the consoles, man. I know that was kind of a loaded question. What about like your top 4 games of gaming franchises?
Franchises is like Zelda easily is number 1. It's not even close.
Yes, sir.
Do arcade games count? Because I would have to put Street Fighter in there too, but I don't really know if that count no more.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
No, absolutely. Now that cool, I have to ask you this. Now, some people don't notice when I say this. No, Enrique didn't. Do you remember the Street Fighter cabinet with the big buttons on it?
I do not.
No, yeah. I don't think they were like that common, but I remember
that was
like
a South Florida thing, man.
Wait, you mean not the Street Fighter 2, but like the actual Street Fighter?
Yeah, the OG, like some of the first cabinets had like these. It was like red and blue, but these big buttons that you could pound, you slammed on like with your fist.
Yeah, I think I haven't.
They just
seen
didn't
them
last
arcade,
because they got beat the hell up.
but I think in Juice they had those when they had that arcade scene in Juice. Y'all might not know about that movie. That
Oh yeah, I know about Juice.
No, we know Juice.
Man, come on, man. We know
Yeah.
that.
I'm pretty sure they had one of those in Juice, but no, I never seen that in real life.
Yeah. Like I said, they didn't last long because, like, I mean, you imagine a bunch of kids pounding on this thing, like it didn't last long. The concept was pretty interesting, but but it had the big buttons that you could slam on.
Yeah, I never did play on that one, but I sure wouldn't mind.
All right, so we have Zelda, Street Fighter, and what would the other two be?
Probably Final Fantasy.
Woo! Oh, I love it.
And one more. Oh, so for a well, in my mind anyway, and if you talk to a lot of developers in the video game industry, probably the most important game in the last 20, 30 years was Super Mario 64. Because of exactly what y'all said earlier.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Nintendo taught us how to take from 2D to 3D, but still make it an interactive 3D with a ton of content and gameplay and technique. And once they showed us the blueprint, games took off from there, because all before that, it was just first person like Quake and Doom stuff in 3D.
Facts.
But Nintendo actually showed you how to have traditional platforming gameplay and a bunch of storytelling and other stuff in a 3D game. So it was very important. So I probably would choose it just because of how important that one game was.
Right.
That's a great point, man. That's a very strong list, sir, I may say. That's a great list of games. I mean, some of those games are so influential to the industry and impacted and inspired so many other games to be made in the same vein. So that's a great list, man. We do have B Money, who just jumped in. What's up, B?
Yo, what's going on, fellas? Sorry I'm late.
No worries, man. You ate that steak dinner, man. I'm not mad at you, man.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and then we have Jeremy here in the house. What's going on, man?
Hey, what's up? What's up?
Jeremy, you are unofficially our resident BRAP PlayStation rep, man. So so welcome back, man, dude. It's good to have you back on, man. I'm glad you could make it, because we got a lot to talk about when it comes to Sony.
I hear.
Yes, so you hear, exactly, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I do want to go back to Optimus Code, and this kind of ties into our just a quick first topic. Optimus, I know before we went live, you mentioned that your career has been spent as a software engineer. You've done coding. Yeah. You've been in the gaming industry as a developer. You mentioned for a couple years, and so you have some insight, into game development. So
yes, I do.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So Matt Booty, there's an article on Matt Booty, and everyone's probably read this, and there's been other podcasts that have talked about this, but I just want to talk about this real quick. And B, was this part of your topic too? I know you said something about power earlier. I don't remember off the top of my head. I apologize.
No.
Okay, so So obviously, and this isn't any surprise by any stretch of the imagination. Phil Spencer's been on record saying, lay no console left behind, ecosystem, everyone's, together. We're not leaving anyone behind, yada, yada, yada. And so Matt Booty pretty much doubled down, confirmed that the Series X, the new, or the Xbox Sex, as I call it, will not have exclusive games. And that's not to say it won't have exclusive first-party games, but it won't have games dedicated solely to that console for the first 1 or 2 years, for the first year or two, and then the games that are first-party exclusives will scale across the family of Xbox consoles. So, as you know, that's going to cause a tizzy on Twitter. People go, it's crazy some of the stuff that I read. Microsoft's gimping stuff, and that's not the case. That's not the case. I even on Crossfire this past Friday kind of made that argument that in terms of graphical fidelity, a game like Halo Infinite, it's going to look great on the Series X, right? But since then, though, and Digital Foundry did something recently where they talked about when we talk about game design, which we talked about a little bit, Optimus, before we went live, because you mentioned this too. What goes into game design? And I said this on Crossfire too. Look, there are going to be compromises that are going to be made. I've had game developers tell me this. That when you're dealing with multiple SKUs with different hardware, there's always some kind of compromise made. The one consistent I heard is when you're dealing with multiple SKUs, you're locking yourself into a compromising situation where you may not be able to implement certain gameplay aspects that you may wanted to have in that game due to hardware restraints on weaker hardware. Guerrilla Games has mentioned this too, that even with a game like Horizon Zero Dawn, which looks fantastic on the PlayStation, there were some design things, there were some gameplay mechanics that they had to scrap because the hardware they couldn't implement it on the PlayStation hardware. And look, let's face it, I get these games are going to scale. No one's arguing that. These games will, in terms of graphic fidelity, frame rates, will look great on the Series X. You would expect that with more new or better hardware. But there is something to be said in terms of compromises, and that's a reality that's been confirmed to me by developers. And so Optimus, you've been in that space, man. So just kind of like explain that a little bit, like how that actually works. In fact that when you think about gameplay development and what you choose to implement, that in fact weaker hardware can hold certain aspects of game design back.
Oh, certainly, be more than happy to, bro. So first, the layman's conversation that I've been following on Twitter, and I've been involved in a couple of these myself on Twitter, people are conflating two things that sort of don't really go together, but they've been conflating them anyway. Most people, when they talk about the scaling and the game scaling up and down and weaker hardware, newer hardware and that stuff, what they are really talking about is frame rate, performance, resolution, and the texture quality, that type of thing. And so they're only really looking at the graphical aspects of a game, which by the time you get to implementing those graphical features, the game has already been gimped. And the key is that when a designer sits down to, like, if Corey wants to design the game, he has a vision for the game and he thinks, okay, we want this gameplay element, or any game designer, like, it doesn't matter who it is, they have a vision that they want the player to experience. And then it's up to the coders, given the target hardware, to decide and to help the team decide which of these we can actually do or not. And the hardware is going to determine how much of the designer's original vision can be implemented. Like you said with Horizon, we wanted to do this, but what we ended up doing was this. And you got a lot of talented developers out there, so there's a lot of things that they can do to, like, squeeze every ounce of performance out of a machine. But the conversation that we're having about the Series X being held back by older hardware is that the design of the game has to suffer because it has to match the older hardware. And even if you can make the game look better, the design still has been compromised. So there's a caveat to that I want to add here in a minute, but let me clarify. So say, for example, let's just say, and this is the example I used on Twitter, let's just say the designer says, okay, I want to have a boss fight, and I want to draw 1,000 enemies on the screen. And the player has to defeat 1,000 enemies. And there's this switch in the sky or in the air. There's no way for you to get up to this switch, right? Like, you have to hit this switch to open the door to get out of the area that you're in, but you can't get up there. But as you kill enemies, you can stack their dead bodies up. And once you've killed 1,000 dudes, what's the language for this show? Is this a PG show?
You could, I mean, you know,
we prime time, man. Go ahead.
We're prime time, man. This is HBO,
Okay.
so
Yeah, this HBO over here.
Well, I'm gonna play it safe because I almost had a slip of the tongue. But so let's just say you got
Slow-Mo
1,000
cusses.
enemies.
Hey, listen, Slow-Mo cusses all the time, man. He's got sailor mouth.
Oh, okay. All right, that's what's up. All right, I appreciate that.
This is true. This is true. I need to work on that.
Especially when Forte gets you riled up.
So I think y'all can see where I'm going with this. So you got to kill 1,000 cats enemies, and once you kill them all, you can create a stack of dead bodies tall enough to climb up to reach this switch, and you can turn it off or open the door or whatever it is. So say that's the gameplay element that you want. But you realize that, okay, with an older system, not only can I not draw 1,000 enemies, I also can only have so many on screen at once. So if I got 3 dead bodies laying around, and if the player kills 5 more, then one of those 3 that's laying around dead has to disappear, or we have to turn it into a bitmap or something. But like, you can no longer interact with it, stuff like that. So like, the hardware is going to constrain you, and the designer and the dev team, they're going to come to the conclusion that, okay, we can't draw 1,000 enemies on the lowest hardware. So you have to change this. How about 200 enemies instead? Because the older hardware can draw 200 enemies. So you have to reposition the switch so you can stack 200 bodies up. But originally they wanted 1,000, but they can't do that with the base hardware. So the design of the game has been changed to match what the old hardware can accommodate. And so the developers, though, they'll do what they can to try to keep that original vision. So they'll say, okay, how about we do it in waves of 50? So instead of fighting 1,000 at once, you fight 50. And then once you beat those 50, you can stack them up. But then we'll turn that into one polygon with a bitmap, or we will reduce the polygon count, whatever it is. The developers will come up with ways to try to keep the original vision. The point is that there's going to be give and take, to where we can produce as close as possible to what the designer envisioned on the oldest hardware. The newest hardware is no problem. They could do it all, like, effortlessly, but they won't be able to make a design for the new hardware. And that's what we mean when we say the design is compromised. And so if they come up with a situation where you fight 50 at a time to accommodate the old hardware, that's great. And the way it will look on the new game is those 50, you'll still get 50, but they'll be super high res, and you'll have like ray tracing on them and all of this stuff. So they will look better. And so the majority of people on Twitter are saying, well, because they're ray traced and because they've got a high polygon count and all of this stuff, that the game wasn't compromised because it still looks good, or it looks better. And the older system, it might be at 720p and lesser polygon count, low res textures. And so the people are going to compare those two outputs and say, see, the game wasn't compromised. It looks great. And they're not understanding that before you even got to the graphics, the design of the game has already been changed. And that's what we mean by the game is compromised at the design phase.
Optimus, that was a great explanation. I think that most people will be able to understand.
You would think.
Well, yeah, I mean, I say
know, man.
that's a great point, Slow-Mo.
Got some slow characters around here, man.
I know, man. After that, we may have to break out the crayons and the coloring paper and draw it up in a real simple term. But that might be not enough, you know.
So we'll be like, sit crisscross
I can tell you
applesauce.
right
Let's
now.
go.
I'll tell you right now, it's not gonna be enough.
I mean,
Well, now, let me jump in real
Scenario
quick because I don't want to leave that out there like that because there's a
Go ahead.
caveat I want to
Sure.
make sure I clarify because I talked to one of the guys I started game development with. He ended up going to work for Microsoft, and he was there for a long time. And he actually ended up in a pretty high-ranking position at Microsoft. And he and I just talked a day before yesterday.
Does his name rhyme with pill?
No,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
no, not. I've never met Hill at all. But this guy that I'm talking about, like we worked together for 3-4 years, working on the game. We still keep in contact. He came to visit me this summer. Like we're friends, right?
Is this name similar to Ike Cara?
No, it's not.
No, okay. I'll stop trying. Oh, I'm sorry. Continue.
Does his name rhyme with Fojima? I'm just kidding. That's it. No,
I
joking.
wish it did. Ooh-wee. So the point is, though, he and I were talking, and what he did, part of his job at Microsoft was to he would work with like third parties where if their game was too slow and they couldn't get the frame rate up, then Microsoft would send him out to go work with that team for 2 weeks, and he would like just improve their rendering engine or whatever it took. He could write C++, assembly, but his goal was to make people's games performant, and he did that for many years. So like he knows what he's talking about when it comes to this stuff. That was his job, getting performance out of hardware. And we were talking about this very issue, and he brought up a very important point that I had been leaving out, which was in my whole conversation, like the conversation we just had, where I gave that example, all of that is assuming like a regular game development budget. Here's your budget, here's your number of resources, go build the game in this time frame. He told me that instead of assuming that Microsoft, which is who we're talking about, would only be willing to spend the standard budget on the game, if Microsoft is willing to spend more money, they actually could have, say, Halo Infinite take full advantage of the hardware. They could have different code paths where we detect the 1X, the 1S, the Series X, the sex, like you called it. If we're on the sex, we place the switch this high, we bring the 1,000 enemies out, we draw them, we do the whole thing exactly the way we wanted to do, zero compromises. It would take extra budget to accomplish that, but then, if that delta is small, then you could merge that back into one code base, so you could have one game that does take full advantage of the hardware and is not gimped at the design phase, and then the other lesser hardware versions get the compromised version, but without compromising the big one. But that would take a lot of money and resources.
And that would probably extend your development time too, right?
Not necessarily, because they can do it in parallel. If the team is big enough, they're working on those pieces at the same time.
Gotcha. So you just need more people. You need more people.
Yeah, but more testers. So I mean, theoretically, it could take longer because it's 2 code paths that you have to test and all of that stuff. So the thing is, though, I want to say really quick, and I'll give up the mic. If you look at Matt Booty's comments, he said something to that effect, that they're going to take one game and really maximize that one. And so my guy, he doesn't work at Microsoft anymore. He did. He's retired now. And so the point is, don't underestimate how much Microsoft is willing to spend to make sure that Halo Infinite is not compromised.
Well,
but from a general point of view, generally speaking, without doing anything extra, you have to cater to the lowest hardware.
Yeah, I think that's the main reason. One of my favorite games that came out this gen, Battlefield 4, was so messed up because of that same thing you just talked about. You know, people didn't know on Battlefield 4 on 360 and PS3, because it was a cross-gen title, there was parts of the game that you couldn't even access for multiplayer or single player because they cut the maps in half. And then you also had smaller player sizes for the multiplayer where it was only 32 players. It was 64 on PC. And that really speaks to the point where they say whenever they fixed one thing on Battlefield, it broke something else because they were dealing with two different codes on two different systems.
Yeah,
so
it's definitely trickier. Yeah.
So I definitely, that's why when you said that, I definitely agree. They can do it because I think that's something that EA wanted to do with Battlefield, since it was one of their flagship titles at the time. And it really did show off the power of the new gen systems, moving it up to 720p on Xbox and 1080p on PlayStation 4. But just the sheer amount of players that could be in the game was the biggest thing that they were able to achieve with the new systems. And they can definitely do that on a development level if the money is right to do it.
Absolutely. You speak the truth, bro. Yeah.
So let me ask this real quick. Do you think that the games that Microsoft are going to be bringing out, are they going to be a specific Xbox One SKU and an Xbox Series X SKU? Or do you think that they're just going to have one disc, you drop it in and do like what you had mentioned, Optimus, scale it so that you drop it into an Xbox, it'll work one way. You drop it into a Series X, it works another way. What do you guys think?
Well, yeah, I think Optimus mentioned that, and I hadn't seen the tweet, but I think you mentioned that Mike Ibarra had made some comments that kind of indicated that they were going to just go strictly the scaling route, where it's just frame rates, resolutions, textures. That it's the same game. Like if you go into a kill room area and on the Xbox One S, you got 6 enemies there. On the Series X, you're gonna have this. If you go to that same area at that same time, it's gonna be the same number of enemies that you're fighting, except the game is gonna look a lot better. It's gonna run at 60 frames per second, and it's gonna be at 4K native. Whereas on the One S, you're looking at like dynamic 900p and barely 30 frames per second, right?
So we're talking one disc across all systems as opposed to a specific disc for the Xbox, One, and a specific disc for the Series X. That's
right. And that's kind of similar to what I remember what Respawn did with Titanfall 1 on the 360 and the version that was on Xbox One. It's they had 2 different development teams working on that game, and from what people were saying, that the team that was working on the 360 was really struggling to get this game to be playable at all on the 360. So yeah, I mean, you have to have 2 different, but that kind of goes back to what he was saying about you need more people, you need more resources, because then if you're going to do 2 different codes, then you're going to have people working simultaneously with one another in order to get that done and to make sure that as much as you can to get it to be as close to the same game as possible, that you can do that.
Yeah. Yep. And another, exactly what he said. One SKU, so I think they want to avoid confusion in the marketplace. So I think it's just Halo Infinite. That's it. You buy it and it adapts to whatever hardware that you have. And I really want to clarify like this, the thing that I said where you cannot be affected by the design because you can have more people and more resources working on to make sure they're maxing out the hardware. That only works with single player games, to be clear. If there is a multiplayer aspect, the multiplayer has to be identical to the base hardware because they're going to play with each other. It can look better, but like my man just said, if it's got 5 enemies in a multiplayer on the 1S, it's going to have those same 5 on the Sex. They'll look better, but the multiplayer has to be exactly the same. Single player, you have freedom to maximize one hardware over the other because you don't have to coordinate with any other systems running at the same time.
So wouldn't that hamper Halo Infinite experience then? Because isn't that
The
the
multiplayer,
campaign?
yes. But
Isn't
the
the
right,
I,
so
I
those are
think it will
different
it will
modes, right?
enter like if they do something like Warzone, where you got AI and everything in the multiplayer like they had in Halo 5 or Halo 5, it could hamper that. But when it comes to like I think standard, PvP, depending on how many players they want to go with, I think that wouldn't be as
No, I think it'll hamper it
crazy.
because, like my man was saying, whereas you could have 128 player battles,
Oh well, yeah,
Battle
yeah.
Royale is going to be down to 16 because the 1S can only do 16, and that's it. So everybody's going to do 16 regardless because the multiplayer has to be exactly the same.
Right.
But the multiplayer mode is different than the campaign mode. So they can go out all out in a single player campaign. And then same thing, somebody asked me on Twitter today, but if the campaign is co-op, then don't they have to drop it down again? And the answer to that is yes, but they can still detect if we're in co-op mode, use a lesser version. If we're in single player campaign mode, then we can just go ahead and go all out. So they definitely have things that they can do. It's just very expensive.
Mm. And you probably need, and yeah, you need a lot of work. You need a lot of people too. I remember, and because this, you saying that brings up another example that I heard about Destiny and Bungie and how if Destiny 1 was just on the current gen consoles now and not on 360 and PS3, that the Cosmodrome, which was the map on Earth, would have been 5 times the size that it was.
Absolutely.
And they said even then, because of the limitations, that it ended up being the size that it was in certain parts of it, they had to find ways in order to load certain parts of the map in. They had basically it said they had to get very creative with it, which that wouldn't have been the case if they weren't having to code this game for a 360 and a PS3.
Exactly, and that's what I mean. So by the two, so remember, you got the two aspects to building the game. You got the designer, then you got the dev team that's working to create the design. And like I said earlier, we got a lot of really smart programmers out there, so they can find different little hacks and tricks to squeeze stuff out of the system. But it reach a point where you've done all you can, and you're just limited by the hardware.
Right.
Hey, Optimus, Pixel Bit G, excuse me, in the live chat, he says,
oh, that's my guy right there. What's up, bro?
Yeah, he says multiplayer need to run on the local machine 100% when they have xCloud to leverage? ?
So, I mean, it's going to be the same thing. xCloud is a little different because now that is the same hardware, right? So whatever that lowest common denominator is in xCloud is what they're going to have to cater to.
Which is the 1S.
Yeah, then that everything is going to have to go down to the 1S. Because again, it has to be the same. If I'm playing with somebody else, right? And if I'm in the room and we trying to get through this room and I think we got to kill 50 enemies, you think we got to kill 10, and
somebody not pulling their weight.
It was why you stop shooting? We got 40 more to go. What you talking about, man? I'm going to the next part of the map, man. My part's done. Good luck with that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Optimus.
Also, I just want to say something. He said something about running 100% on the local machine with multiplayer. I remember listening to an interview with Massive Entertainment, and one of the developers, actually it was Red Storm, because Red Storm does the Dark Zone and all the PvP stuff for the Division. And one of the developers was talking about why it's difficult to change certain things, and it was difficult to change certain things very quickly when it comes to there's a bug or something going on. And he mentioned like the difference between client side, like whatever they've coded for client side versus what they've coded for the server side. So if it's a server side issue, they can change it immediately. Where if it's client side, you're gonna have to wait into a patch because not everything is ran locally on your console, on your PC. Some of it is client, some of it is server, and that's a way to kind of how to deal with the memory issues that you have too. You can put a lot of stuff in server so that you don't have to worry about it, bogging down the machine when you're trying to keep a stable frame rate, yada yada yada. So I know I like it's already now 100% local anyway. So especially if it's a multiplayer game, and every multiplayer game at this point, unless it's like a Nintendo game, is online. So yeah.
Optimus, go ahead. Yeah, Optimus, go ahead. I think you were saying something else.
No, that's it.
Okay.
Or if it was, I can't remember it. But no, that's it.
No, seriously, man, that's a great explanation. I think most people, I think most people would understand kind of, your breakdown of game development, what it's like when you're coding for multiple SKUs, the impact of weaker hardware. The advantage of having multiple teams, more. It sounds like the more money you spend, then potentially you could actually, take advantage of newer hardware if you have the resources to do so, man. So that's a great breakdown and explanation, man. I hope that that kind of clarifies things. But we'll see. But I do want to move on to another topic. We're not going to talk about Sony just yet because we'll leave that towards the latter part of the show.
You're trying to egg everybody on and
build
up the expectations.
That's how you host, man.
Yeah,
you know you best for last.
Forte, I got to build up that momentum. You know what I'm saying?
Whoa. That's what Kansas City gonna be feeling on Sunday. That momentum going through their bodies.
Yes, sir. So,
wait. Who y'all rooting for in the NFL, real quick? Because that sounds like an.
I'm rooting for the Titans because they beat my Patriots.
You like the Patriots?
I'm going.
I
know, right?
I'm Patriots head to toe, brother. Ever since Patrick Edric, Tom Brady was there, I've been a Patriot fan.
Of course.
So you're a bandwagon, basically. You've been a fan ever since they've been winning.
No, hold on. I live in Michigan. I have a
That's not Boston.
Hold on. Listen. I live in Michigan.
They play in Boston.
Listen, I have the only Michigan jersey I've ever owned is a Tom Brady jersey because I went to 3 of their games when he played here at Michigan.
Oh,
I was mad as hell when they kept messing around with him at quarterback, moving him between him and Drew Henson. He should have just been a starting quarterback the whole time. So I bought a Tom Brady jersey back when he was at Michigan, and I bought a Patriot jersey when he was drafted by the Patriots, sir. So
and he wasn't playing.
Fan. Yes, because I'm a Tom Brady fan. Bro.
So you bought a Tom Brady jersey for a 6th round pick that wasn't playing. Hold on, guys, listen. Hold on. You do realize they don't make jerseys for every single player that's on the roster, right? Like the 3rd string quarterback don't get a jersey.
Listen.
I'm just saying that sounds a little fishy to me.
When Tom Brady became a starting quarterback,
No.
That's not what you said.
Wait, Forte.
Which was the second year
not what you said.
being in the NFL.
You said when he joined the Patriots, you bought his jersey.
Forte.
Okay.
Let's just keep it real. You've been a Patriots fan since 2001, man.
Exactly.
Okay. I mean, let's just keep it, and it's okay.
No. Forte, I never said no. You're right. Since 2001, when Tom Brady.
Yes, you're a bandwagon fan, and that's okay. It is what it is, man.
And guess what? I will be a Patriot fan if Tom Brady leaves and goes somewhere else.
No, you won't. Yeah.
Okay. So if they start losing. You still gonna be a fan?
Be mad like all these Lions fans that live in Michigan right now.
No, he's not. He's gonna jump on the next team that wins.
Listen. Forte
is gonna be a 49ers fan this year if they win the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
In Forte's defense, he ain't alone.
No. There are plenty of bandwagon fans out there.
Let's be 100% here. There was a moment. because I didn't believe in this whole fandom thing. I was like, oh man.
Oh, see, here we go.
No, I'm talking
I
about
don't
fandom of a
believe
team.
in fandom.
I never believed in that whole fandom of a team thing until one thing happened to me. Because I used to always laugh at people when they be in the stands and they cry because they team about to lose and stuff. They all heartbroken. I'd be like, damn, it's just a damn game. It's a damn team. Why y'all so heartbroken? Until 2007, my Patriots was in the Super Bowl, undefeated season, and freaking lost to the luckiest throw I ever seen in my life in a playoff game by a person that closed his eyes and prayed to God. When that happened to me, you know what? My wife was sitting next to me on the couch and was like, are you about to cry?
Forte, real quick.
Listen, she was like, were you about to cry? And I was like, oh my God, I am about to freaking cry because my team was about to lose this game. And literally, that was the moment I truly switched over from being a Tom Brady fan, to a Patriot fan. Because I instantly
like,
felt
wait, hold on, Slow-Mo. Hold on.
Yes, I play basketball and football.
I want to go to the live chat. I want to go live chat real quick. I'm going to go live chat. Saltiest Gaming says,
go ahead.
I'm going to go live chat. Saltiest Gaming says that Forte was a Golden State fan too.
That's what I was about to ask.
Hold on. Let's. I don't have a basketball. I don't have a basketball favorite team. I don't. I just hate everything Cleveland. So anybody that LeBron James goes against, I always root for the other team. So yes, there were moments I was rooting for Golden State. I was rooting for San Antonio.
You know he's not Cleveland no more, right?
No, he's still from Cleveland. That's like, listen, man, Michigan.
Damn, I mean, like you
from Ohio.
You hate the whole state. I mean, like just
I'm a Michigan
born there,
bro. I am a Michigan fan, and I hold animosity towards the state of Ohio when it comes to that.
Hey, how many times has Michigan beat Ohio State?
Exactly, and that's the bad thing right there. We living in mediocrity right now because Ohio State beating us.
Yes, and this is why you're a Patriots fan, man. You got tired of the living in the
No. I got tired of trying to hope that the Lions would do something to stop wasting talent and stop wasting Hall of Famers in their prime like Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson.
You ain't lying on that one, bro.
They wasted
that's true, man. I'll give you that.
They literally wasted 2 Hall of Fame. Well, I mean, Calvin Johnson probably won't go to Hall of Fame. But
yes, he will.
Yeah,
he will.
I don't know. I mean,
he's going to go to the Hall of Fame. He'll go.
He was a dominant player his entire career.
If he goes, they literally wasted 2 players in career here in with the Lions. And I can't be with that.
Okay,
man.
okay, guys. Stupid. All right, yeah. Well, let's get back to the gaming talk. And we'll just leave it at Forte, as we have confirmed that he is a bandwagon Patriots fan. We're gonna people in the live chat saying you're driving the bandwagon.
Next year, Tom Brady ain't there. I want to hear y'all say that. I want to hear y'all say that.
I'm rooting for the Titans.
I'm rooting for the Titans because they beat my team. So down with Kansas City as usual.
No, he's only rooting for the Titans because Mike Vrabel's a coach, former Patriots player.
Oh, I didn't even think about
anybody
that.
that beats the Patriots. True. I'm down. I'm down with anybody that beats the Patriots. But
that's called fraud. Stop. Just got tired of people winning. I understand.
No. Hey,
got tired of people cheating.
You should have been happy.
Right.
Dolphins ruined our freaking playoffs.
Yeah, that's what I love about it. I love the fact that the Dolphins can suck all year, but they love to ruin playoff hopes for teams.
I don't know what the heck the Dolphins' problem is when it comes to playing the Patriots. I always say we're gonna lose to the Dolphins once a year.
Yep.
All right, hey guys.
But I just like the fact that Ryan's moving because once again, any player that leaves Miami finds success.
Yeah,
that's true. That's right. True. That's true.
All right, hey guys. Let's get back to the next
topic. That also goes for people that leave Washington.
Oh boy! All right, so let's get to some other gaming related topics. Eric, this is your topic, man. Rocksteady, Batman.
Well, it's not even Rocksteady, it's WB Montreal.
Oh, WB Montreal. Thank you. I said I think it's So, what's going on over there, E?
Hell if I know, man. But this Batman tease, it's just like
the worst marketing ever, man.
Man. It's like they want people to do like this super sleuthing and figure it all out, and like cracking codes like the real Batman. It's like, okay, that's cute, like once.
You don't want to
be stretching it out. No, not like that, man. but I'm just like, I was thinking about it the other day because I keep seeing people, some people are like still kind of hyped to see it, and I think some people are kind of more so have faded off on it, like are just kind of tired of it. But it seems like now it's become a meme, and I just started thinking about the fact, like, whatever it's gonna be, it's WB Montreal. They did Arkham Origins, which was, a decent entry in the Batman Arkham stuff. But that game's got to be fire. If you making all this, this hoopla and bringing all this work, it's got to be fire. And it's
So
got to
what
do
y'all
some
talking
major
about?
changes.
I haven't seen no stuff about a new Batman. What y'all mean?
Okay, so it's been like one of those secrets that's completely not a secret at all because everyone knows, kind of like Fable and Playground Games, where WB Montreal has been making a Batman game for a while now. It's been known for like at least 2 years, and people have been like, "Why don't I just announce it, like, or do a trailer or something? Like, we already know you're making the game," and they've just been denying, and then you get like these little like rumors that they're going to show it at the VGAs or show it at Gamescom. Every time there's a gaming event or conference, you hear they're going to show the game, and then they never do. And so now finally they come out and they're doing some marketing now, and like they're showing parts of a logo, and then they show like another part of a logo. You're supposed to put them together or something, and people are just like,
all right,
dude, just show the freaking game. Like, I don't want to do like this isn't the Da Vinci Code. I don't want to do any of that. Like, can you just show me the game? And so like I really feel like exactly right. Like, I really feel like they're putting themselves in a position where they kind of set themselves up for failure, because if the game isn't fire, people are going to be like, yo, we waited for this. You did all of that for a game that's barely any different than Arkham Knight. That's going to be a problem, and I'm gonna have a problem if they got some more of them Bat Tank missions.
Slow-mo, I saw concept art for this game like 4 years ago. I think E, you may have seen it too, if I'm not mistaken. So. You remember? I'm not going to say his name. I don't want to get him in trouble, but someone shared some concept art with us, and there was a bat bike, the motorcycle, some of the villains. And that was like what, 3 or 4 years ago, right? Is that
something like that. Yep.
And I think at that time we thought they were going to announce it at E3, and nope, nothing, nada.
Hey, Enrique, quick question. This may be kind of random. Is it WB that's also being rumored to do that Harry Potter game? Is that Rocksteady?
Yeah,
I think so.
So like, it's the same thing, because that whole little like a minute. Really low res, but this good looking clip of a Harry Potter game got leaked. It's out there, and it's Rocksteady is attached to that, and they, WB does most of their publishing. I don't know if they got a contract with them or they own them or whatever, but it's just like they just mums the word. They don't say anything about it, and it's just like, yo, can you just look? We see this. Someone's clearly making a Harry Potter game. Someone's clearly making a Batman game. Can you just announce it already? Like, what are you doing? You're not really promoting your games correctly.
And after the thing is, like, after Arkham Knight, the thing that started making me think was like, it seemed like by the time they got to Arkham Knight, people were kind of faded on it. Like, most people didn't like the tank missions.
Oh yeah.
And if you kind of go back and ask most people which game in the series that they like, if it's not Asylum, most people will say City, right? I don't hear a whole lot of people saying Night because of the fact that you just kind of felt like you were going through the motions, and you already knew who the villain was by the end. You know anything about Batman lore.
Yeah, right? you knew it as soon as like if you read the comics or even saw the movie,
the animated stuff.
The animated movie, you already knew who it was immediately.
Right.
Yeah, and even if you didn't, like, they dropped so many clues in the game. By the time you got to the reveal, it was just like, finally. Jeez,
but it was that whole same thing again, where it's like, you're going around, the city's empty because there's a threat, so people are. That's how they explain that there's no civilians like on the streets or anything like that, except for the thugs, and then it's like kind of like that same formula, and it was fantastic in when it was introduced in Asylum. It was awesome when they expanded it and made City. It started to fade when they got to Arkham Knight. So now I'm kind of thinking, okay, they're doing all these teasers, doing whatever. What can they do, or what do you guys think they need to do to make this next game, like, to introduce new mechanics, something new fire? What will get you excited for it?
Well, I'll go first. I think that I don't know exactly what kind of mode that they can implement, but I think whatever they do implement, that's completely unique. And I think, well, I mean, I think people kind of expect that from Batman games. The combat system was something that was fairly new, and from Arkham Asylum, and it got really adopted by a lot of different games. And I think they've already the Arkham franchise already has like this reputation of coming out with something that you don't get anywhere else. And so I do think they got to do something new, and I think they should, whatever it is, they should. The amount of the game that they had with those stupid tank missions in Arkham Knight completely replaced that with what that tank stuff was. Just completely replaced that. That has to be some kind of new, system. I don't know. I don't know what they could do, because there's only so much you can do when you're dealing with a long story franchise, a long story IP like Batman. Mm-hmm. And you can't go too far out of bounds, although they did kind of with the ending with Arkham City, with how they ended that was a little different. Yeah, but you can't go too crazy, because then like the fanboys get mad, like that's not my Batman, that kind of stuff. So right, but they gotta do something a little different. I just don't know what.
I think they should have a bigger city. I think we were talking about this in the Brap DM. Like, you compare a game like Spider-Man, where the city seems so much more alive. There was more civilians or NPCs. And if they're going to make this for next gen hardware, don't make it on last gen hardware. Make this game strictly for PS5, Xbox Series X, and just put a shitload of NPCs in there. Make this sprawling city, the city that feels alive. That's what I want to see from them.
And you got to have the traversal that Spider-Man had too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, but you can. I mean, with the grappling hook, you can kind of have that a little bit, and then like in back in Arkham Knight, where he would like kind of glide around. But I agree.
I thought that was implemented well in Arkham Knight, because once you leveled yourself up enough, you could glide across half the city easily. Yeah. No, I thought that was done well. It was just an empty city.
It was empty, except for like the bad guys, and that was it. And then they forced you to get in the Batmobile, and you got in that tank mode, the Batmobile. Gosh. And I would actually prefer like a Christian Bale type voice actor, like for Batman. I didn't like Batman's voice in Arkham Knight. He seemed a little bit too. Voice? He was like, "Hey guys, what's going on? I'm Batman." I just didn't like that.
Was it Mickey Mouse?
Yeah. Hey guys, it's me, Batman.
What was that?
Hey, get out of the way, guys! It's Batman. No, I want to see like a Batman, where is he? Where is he?
Where's the Joker?
But I think, oh my god, I think Insomniac kind of laid the. I think the Insomniac kind of laid the blueprint. I think, for what they can do, with Arkham Knight. I mean, with the new Batman, and I don't even know if I would change anything, like with the fighting mechanics. I would say they were the best, but they were serviceable. I guess, I don't know.
It's Kevin Conroy. Kevin Conroy did the voice.
I didn't like him. I didn't like him as Batman.
Man. Really?
Yeah.
He's done Batman.
Man.
He's always Batman. He's Batman in all the animated movies too.
I don't like him. I prefer the. You know what, man? I just prefer that. Where is he? I prefer that.
That's asshole bullshit.
Yeah, that's that Christian Bale Batman, where he goes a little far with it. I never really liked his.
They lean way too much into that that death metal stuff, man.
Yeah. Is Conroy the Batman for the animated series, like the amazing animated series from our childhood?
Yeah.
Oh, I disagree, Enrique. I disagree completely. That guy's amazing.
Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill is Joker. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not saying Kevin Conroy is terrible. I'm just saying I prefer Christian Bale's, like that kind of voice, that deeper voice.
I always wanted to give him a cough drop after seeing Christian Bale's performance. I was just like, "Oh,
where's the Joker?"
Where's my tussin?
Okay. Not to go down a rabbit hole, but there's a funny thing that my boys and I laughed at when you look at what was it, Dark Knight Rises, right? He's talking to Catwoman on the roof or whatever, and he's doing the voice, and she's talking to him, and then she dips, right?
Mm-hmm.
He himself. Why is he still doing the voice? So that's what.
Your body, man.
Oh,
Now you're not body.
It keeps dropping out, man. What's going on my internet tonight?
Yeah. Hey, are you downloading anything? Maybe you running uTorrent or something? I'm just kidding.
I'm back on LimeWire.
Back on LimeWire.
Oh man,
Dang, that's old school right there.
Hey, I ain't gonna lie. I used to use Casa Light, LimeWire. We won't get into that though.
Yeah, man. But anyway,
Yeah.
so no, but
Napster.
Hey,
Wow,
hey, real
man.
quick though, big shout out to our guest, Optimus Code. Bro, we appreciate the $25 super chat, man. Thank you so much,
Absolutely,
man.
man.
It means a lot, bro. Thank you.
Bro, you are disobedient, but you welcome.
He's a bit hard headed.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I would change is to see if they could make like the full campaign like co-op.
Mm-hmm.
You know what
Like
I mean?
with Robin?
If they're gonna,
Ooh, yeah,
yeah,
that'd
if
be
they're gonna
cool.
introduce the Bat Family, I think they should allow, you know what I mean, like at least 2-player co-op, if not 3. So that, you know, change the dynamic of how combat works and how the camera works and stuff like that, and how cutscenes work and things like that. So I think that's one thing that they can implement, especially if they're going to implement, you know, vehicles and stuff like that. So, because everything else, I mean, as far as the fighting style and stuff like that is cool. But I think, you know, like Enrique said, I think Insomniac kind of set the bar for, you know what I mean, these superhero games. And I think even with the Avengers getting pushed back, I think Insomniac has set the bar so high that, you know, if that Avenger game doesn't live up to the hype, man, I think it's just gonna bomb. You know what I mean? And I feel like any superhero game from there on out, if they don't meet that level of quality, then, you know what I mean, most people are just gonna push it to the wayside.
Is there a bunch of hype for that though?
I felt like that game needed more polish when I played it back in August.
Arkham Knight.
The Avengers.
No, I was talking about Avengers.
Oh, Avengers, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, a lot of people have
I
been
thought it
saying
looked
that.
like dumpster juice.
When I played it back in August, it felt like the game didn't have any weight behind it. Like the only character that felt like it was Hulk.
Yeah, it was Hulk.
Everybody else just felt like you were just running around with nothing blocking your momentum and stuff. And
Your momentum.
what? I'm done. Be quiet.
Hey, look, I just came up with a great idea for the next Batman game. Now, hear me out. So, and this is coming off the heels of what
Hold on,
B
what'd you
Money
say,
said
Forte?
about.
Hold on, wait. What did you say, Forte?
I said Slow-Mo said he had a good idea for a Batman game. Put Slow-Mo in it.
Nah, you don't want me in it, man. I'm like,
I think you would be a great
Commissioner Gordon has been kidnapped. I'm like, yo, man, sorry for him. I ain't gonna say I'm not doing any of that crap.
You can play a mob boss or something, dude.
Hey, man, maybe you know, but then I would have to have some kind of gimmick. You know, I'd be like the pigeon or something.
You said the pigeon.
Something stupid, you know. I don't know. But look, this is my idea. Like, and I actually shout out to B Money for what he was talking. It really kind of like occurred to me, just like this epiphany. So you got so many heroes in the Batman universe. You got Batman, you got Nightwing, you got all his Robins, you got Batwoman, you got Batgirl, you know, all these people, right? You got Azrael, you got a whole bunch of people that you can kind of draw from. What if you get to let's say in the next game you get to choose from this group of people? Like it could be Bruce Wayne Batman, or it could be Catwoman, it could be whoever. You get to choose, almost kind of like in, you know, like multiplayer. You get to choose among these different people. And here's the kicker. Here's the part that's a little different. If you go down, if you lose, you know how like in the previous Arkham games, you get knocked out or wherever you get killed, that's it. Then you just restart at the next checkpoint. Mm-hmm. But instead of that, this person gets captured. So let's say you have Robin and you're fighting a bunch of enemies. and you lose. Instead of dying and then going back to the next checkpoint, Robin gets captured, and then you got to go choose a different character among the group of characters to go break him out. So instead, like you gotta go get Nightwing, and then Nightwing's gotta travel to like a different location to go break Robin out, and then until you do that, Robin is unplayable for you.
You know what? That sounds fun if Will Arnett is playing Batman.
Why?
Because I could just see myself running around with Will Arnett.
You want that Lego Batman style?
I love that Lego Batman.
Robin.
Hey, it's so funny, man.
I love that Lego Batman sound. It's
just
hilarious.
Exactly. Try to say talking junk about Robin being captured and stuff, and I can just see Will Arnett going nuts about it. So yeah, Slow-Mo, I am with you 100% on that. If Will Arnett is playing Batman.
Hey, real talk, that sounded like a good idea to me, but I'm gonna take you through. So here's the type of questions. So like you, the game designer. I say I'm the lead developer. And I'm gonna give y'all like a real life scenario of like what it would be like in a session with the developer and the game designer. So you just said, so you choose the next character, you go get Robin. So my very first question would be, once I get Robin, am I controlling two characters now? Do one of them disappear? Like what happens once Robin is rescued?
Okay, once you rescue Robin, but you have maybe a little mini cut scene where Robin thanks you, and then he just kind of goes back to the Batcave where everyone else is, and then you can still choose to pick Robin, but you're still choosing just one person. Like Robin doesn't follow you around or anything. It's just you have one person that you play with, and you don't even have to go get Robin right away. You could say Robin's captured, but you still want to do some other missions. Well, it's just Robin's unplayable until you go break him out. So kind of like it's a little, it's not like a major change, but then it kind of I will also say maybe you could also have like, how like the combos work and how the fighting system works. Where how in Arkham Knight when you were playable with Catwoman, she fought differently than Batman did, and but they all will fight differently. Like Nightwing always fights with his batons, and then like his combat style is a little different. So like maybe people will have preferences. They're like, well, I prefer Nightwing, but if he's captured, man, I need to go get him immediately because I like playing with him. Versus, like Catwoman's captured, I don't really care like that. But then like maybe,
sounds like he picking and chooses. Like, hey man, I'm not doing Robin's loyalty mission yet because I really don't care. I'm about to go do someone else's so I can save them first.
But if you think about it, then like if you get to the end, you beat the game, but you never save them, then it's like it kind of alters your ending. I know that probably really like coding from a coding perspective really would make a designer
Optimus,
like, damn it.
Optimus, at this point, listen to Slow-Mo's idea. Is this what the developer says you're fired?
Well, no.
The developer does not have the ability to fire anybody. Actually, it would be the other way around. The designer's probably in charge of the team.
I meant the design. Okay.
I'm like,
okay, how about the studio head at this point?
Hey, Optimus, get to it. You heard what I said. You make it happen, Captain.
So what about traversal? So, like, how do they get around the city?
Oh, dang.
You have to have a special move for each person, different vehicles.
You would,
Do they all have the same skills? Do I have to switch out to one person to solve this puzzle? Yada yada. Like, how do they all work?
Yeah. See, that's when I think you would almost have to kind of design it almost like a Heavy Rain or like a Detroit, where it's like overlapping storylines.
Good point, B Money.
Thank you, B, for the rescue. There we go. Keep it going.
Wow.
Up in here.
So that way you don't have to really worry about that.
Enrique about to make us some stuff at HR with you guys.
I tell you, if any of this stuff ends up in this Batman game, y'all, I want royalty. Like I'm gonna have to, call up WB and was like,
you better claim copyright right now, man.
Hey, that's a good point. Let me speak to that real quick. So before we got email, right? Like, so before it was email's been around for a long time, but a lot of
AOL.
Yeah, it wasn't just like common use. what would happen if you would send in some game ideas to like a publisher or a developer, it would be through regular mail, through snail mail. The publishers and the developers would never open your mail, and it would always get returned to you unopened, because in the off chance that they actually did implement something in the game that someone had sent in, they did not want that person to be able to say you stole our idea or whatever. So they would not take fan input on any of the game development to protect themselves legally. So like what you just said, like if this shows up in any of the games, like, you know, it's going to be some problems because you're going to want your cut. Yeah, they would avoid that problem altogether back in the olden days. I don't know how they do it now, but they certainly would not read fan email or mail.
Oh, we do it for free now. We just give all our ideas away.
Yeah, but now Slow-Mo, any of those ideas you have, they're not going to implement it. So we're going to get a Git version of Batman. It's just going to be stripped down.
You're right, because it's got to play on the Xbox One S. And
I didn't say that, sir. I just said, never mind.
No.
So realistically, if they just show up with a traditional Batman with just a different setting, are we going to be super excited about that?
Not really.
No,
I mean not. No. I mean, you know, it'd be, if they did that, they'd have to make this. Yeah, some people might, but if they did that, I think they'd have to make this sprawling metropolis to really kind of like, you know, show off.
But your sprawling metropolis has to have some stuff going on. It can't.
That's what I meant.
Have a sprawling metropolis and still have the same thugs walking around. And
yeah, that's what I meant,
guys. There he is, guys. Let's get him.
Hey, it's Batman. Get him.
Hey, Batman better not come over here.
Yeah, I think once Cyberpunk comes out and you see the world that they're gonna build, and if it's everything I think it's gonna be hard for anybody getting away with an open world game like Batman and not having it populated the way it needs to be.
Yeah. See, that's another thing that, you know, we haven't really considered is, you know, I mean, we gave CD Projekt Red so much credit when The Witcher 3 came out because of all the stuff that they implemented.
Where's
there.
Roach?
But, you know, I mean, in a couple months we get Cyberpunk, and just based on some of the stuff they've shown with how NPCs interact, and how, you know, with each other, and then how you interact with NPCs, you know what I mean? That's something that's, you know, another bar that they're setting.
Another bar.
You know what I mean? Going into next generation games.
Hey, Slow-Mo, don't address that, dude. I'm sorry, B-Money.
You know what I mean?
I know. I had to egg him on a little bit. My bad. You know, I like playing with you know, with bugs that are on the ground sometimes. You know, like instead of just stepping on
Buttercup, dude.
Yeah,
yeah, man.
Yeah,
Try to keep up, Buttercup. It's something I say sometimes to piss
not
people
like
off.
this, Slow-Mo. Go ahead, B-Money. Go ahead, B. I'm sorry, B. I didn't mean it. B, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt, man. Go ahead, B.
I apologize. I apologize, not to him, but to you guys. Continue, bro. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, you know, our future games going to be able to, you know what I mean, meet that same level or exceed that, you know, because I had asked a question on Twitter earlier today, and Slow-Mo was one of the first people to respond, and he was talking about, you know, just AI interactions, and you know, that's something that I thought about. I mean, is you know what I mean, the different outcomes you can have just interacting with NPCs and interaction that you could have, and how everyone's game experience, you know, would be totally different if that was to be implemented. So, you know, we're going into all this new power, you know what I mean, these new tool sets with, you know, a better CPU and higher GPU. You know what I mean? What tools are developers actually going to use, and what are going to implement in these games to make them stand out, you know, over the games that we're playing right now? Because if it's just going to be graphics and frame rate, is that going to be enough to, you know, really keep people excited and sustain the momentum of people, you know, continuing to buy games? Because people are buying games at a higher clip than they ever have before.
I don't know, man. Godfall is going to run on a 1060 on PC under recommended settings. So,
I mean, I think it goes back to.
I was like, that's your next gen game, 1060.
Yeah. But I think what Optimus, I don't know, Optimus, you said this before we went live or after, but I think you said like most people aren't going to recognize. The only thing they're going to look at is, I think, you know, graphical fidelity and frames, right? I think you said that earlier before we went live.
Yeah, most people they're going to look at. So if you notice, most people, they get the game, it looks great. If it's got fun gameplay, they enjoy it. They really like it. The only time they get into like it's at this many frames or this resolution, is it checkerboarded? Is it dynamic? Is it native 4K? All of that stuff is really just to feed into this console war stuff. And most people, like, they literally do not know. So what they do is they wait for Digital Foundry to do an analysis. And then they was like, yeah, we running at 4K and you running at checkerboard. But all before that, they didn't know.
Right.
They just waiting for somebody else to tell them. So then they go and trumpet whatever Digital Foundry said.
But only when Digital Foundry is saying things they like. When they don't, then it's like they're frauds.
Digital Foundry's on at that point.
So
It's like
we were making our game, and the guy that was funding us, his name was Alan. So he would come through. He would come down from Chicago, and he would want to see an update on the game or whatever. And at the time, like, we really hadn't optimized anything yet, so we were at 10 frames a second, right? And he was like, "Oh, this is horrible, guys. We got to get this better." We were like, "Okay." So he'd go away. He'd come back 2 more weeks. It's still at 10 frames a second. So we got to complaining. And after this happened like 3 or 4 times, and he was like getting more and more frustrated with us that we hadn't started optimizing the game yet. What we did was we took the frame rate counter, and whatever the frame rate said, so like it was 10, we would be around 10, 11, 12 frames. That's where we were. We just automatically added 25 to whatever number showed up there. So it would say 35 frames a second, but we really weren't at 35. We were still at 10. We just added 25 to whatever the real frame rate was. And he came and he looked at it, and he saw it said 35 frames. And he was like, "Oh, this is so much smoother." We literally did nothing. And that's the thing, like, people buy into it. They buy into the benchmarks and the stats. Most people can't tell. Like I said, they have to wait to Digital Foundry. And I used to be a really big PC gamer. I'm still a big PC gamer.
Yes, PC Master Race.
But I prefer consoles. And that's another topic.
Console master.
I still got my PC, but a buddy of mine, I'm not gonna say his name, but so we was arguing. He was about 60 frames versus 75 frames, and he was like, it makes it. I'm like, anything over 60, it ain't gonna matter, bro. And he was like, yes, it will, because at 90 frames is better and all of this stuff. So I'm like, okay, come over. We did this experiment, right? So I turned the frame rate counter off. And I was playing, and I had him play, and I was like, how many frames is this running at? Is it higher than 60 or not? He don't know how many frames it is, right? So he wanting to turn the frame rate counter on because he cannot tell if it's 91, 92, 100 frames, but because his PC is better than mine, or it was at that time, because his PC was better than mine, he got all his little frame rate counters on. He's like, I'm getting 100 frames, I'm getting 98 frames, you're only getting 70 frames. So we would have these little arguments back and forth. And so to put an end to all of that, I remember what we did with Alan. So it was the opposite from him. I just turned the frame rate counter off. Okay, how many frames is this? The point is, you can't tell. All of that stuff is just for arguing.
It's not even a tell. I mean, I'll tell you, for me, the biggest thing that people don't realize is it's not easy to tell a difference, especially if you're used to playing on console and you play at 60, and there is a difference between 60 and 30.
Absolutely.
But when I play I look at it like this: when you're playing, it should be based off the refresh rate of your monitor.
It has to be.
My monitor refreshes at 144. So I see everything above that. Whenever when my system drops below that, I feel it. You feel it's more of a feel thing. You don't notice it, but you feel it in the game that you're playing. And the more that you play at those higher frame rates, you'll notice
what's the difference in noticing it, not noticing it, but feeling it. How was those two?
Oh yeah, that's what I said. That's the difference. You probably won't notice it by eye, but when you're playing the game, you will notice a 40 frame dip in your frame rate.
I think also the higher the frames, the less you notice the difference. Kind of like when you talking about from 30 to 60, it's like night and day. But then when you start to go up to like 75, like if you're playing the game at 75 to 60, like you're not going to really notice the dip. Like when I play just any games on my rig, and it'll be at very rarely is it locked. Well, I have a 2070 Super, so very rarely is it like locked 144 frames per second because I got a 144 hertz monitor. But
yes,
what will happen is that I'll see it like fluctuate between. So let's say if I'm playing Destiny 2, it'll fluctuate between 105 and 120, and it just fluctuates back and forth. I don't notice any of that. Like I don't notice it at all. Like if I turn the counter off, I would not know. Oh, that's 90 frames. Well, that's 120. No, I have no freaking clue.
And that's my point. And when
but you do notice. But when you play it, you feel the difference. Because when I went from playing Destiny on my computer and then I played with say the Ash and Luca and Forte,
that was terrible.
Man, I felt like I was running in molasses. I was like, what is happening? I was like overshooting because I play a controller on both. I was aiming and I'm like aiming. I'm trying to aim at and I'm it's way off. It took me a couple of matches to get myself adjusted to 30 frames again. And
exactly. I mean, it's exactly what y'all said. From 30 to anything under 30, you can notice right off top. Between 30 and 60, you can notice. But once you get up to 75, 80, 90, I mean, it's just going to be real difficult for your human eye to notice any difference.
But I will say one more thing. I did watch a video from. You guys ever heard of Linus Tech Tips?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So he did a video very recently, like less than a month ago, and it was about because they're just coming out with these monitors. Well, this was before CES, so this wasn't those 360 hertz monitors. This is 240, right? So this is a 240 hertz monitors, and he was doing a test with Shroud, who's huge, one of the biggest game streamers out there, and a bunch of other guys, and Paul's Hardware, a whole bunch of people who do a lot of gaming on PC. And he wanted to see if it really made a difference with the monitor that you were using and the amount of frames that you have. So it was 1080p across the board with their tests, but depending on the kind of monitor they had, they would have the frame rate at a certain level
lock it at whatever the refresh rate is of the monitor.
Yeah, and there's still a lot to do with the skill of the person. Because Shroud, of course, destroyed everyone. He was way more accurate than everyone else. But even him competing on shooting, they had a test set up where someone would jump out of cover and who could shoot that person first kind of thing. And he was on a 60 hertz monitor, and Linus was on the 240 hertz, and he was keeping up with him. Now when it was level, it was no chance. Shroud was getting the guy every single time, but when Shroud had the slower, the 60 hertz monitor, it was they were actually somewhat even though Shroud still won. So it was it still is about your skill level and your fast twitch ability to really hit something and see it and hit it. But it does seem to be somewhat of a
it makes a difference with the game.
Let me ask you this, Slow-Mo. You were a good candidate for this. You play Destiny on PC. You play Crucible on PC. Mm-hmm. How do you feel when you go back to Xbox and play Crucible on Xbox after you get used to the difference in the frame rate?
Like I said, I feel like I'm running in molasses. Really,
not just that. I'm talking about how do you feel playing the game against other people? Because I feel like a god. I'm not gonna lie.
No, that's a great point, Forte. Like I feel like
when I go over to PC and play,
yep,
I feel I'm already gipping myself because I'm playing with a controller and I can really hold my own with a controller over there. But when I come to console, I feel like a freaking god. After I get used to the difference in frame rates, it's pretty jarring how much better I feel like I am when I come back to Xbox.
Okay, I'm gonna bring something up that happened in Forte, and Luca probably gonna give me all kinds of crap for this. But you remember? So remember, was it last week that we were playing?
It was last week. Yeah,
last week we were playing. We started playing on Xbox because like we started on PC, and then Luca jumped in the party. Luca was like, "I want to play with you guys," but she doesn't have a PC, so he was like, "All right, let's get on Xbox." So we're all on our Xbox One X. We're playing Destiny. I'm complaining initially about like I think we did some PvE stuff. I'm like, man, I can't aim for anything right now. But then we started doing Crucible, and Forte's right. Like when you play at higher frames, it's like it's something about because all I know was usually when I play with Forte and I'm stuck playing at his level of skill-based matchmaking. I'm getting bent over. No lube. It's real rough, right? But then like
skills then.
He all right. Forte, I don't want to boost his. Okay, he's okay. But
just okay.
But we did about 3 or 4 matches. There was a couple of them I was at the top. I was, definitely wasn't at the bottom or anything. But this is against like, he and Luca's skill-based matchmaking where they play with all the sweaties, all the sweaty guys, and I'm like, I'm doing good. I'm like, okay.
I'm not gonna lie, when he was at we played like he said 4 games. He was at the top for the first 2, and I was sitting there, me and Luca. I was like, I kept saying, it's like, bro, slow-mo killing it. I'm still trying to get used to this freaking 30 frames per second. And I'm up there like, I'm still doing good. I'm still like almost a 3 KD, but slow-mo at the top of the leaderboard. And then I was like, you know what? Screw this. I can't let slow-mo stay at the top of the leaderboard. So the last 2 games we played, I was at the very top. And then that slow-mo was like, well, we won. I guess I'm getting off and going to bed. But literally, that is the most jarring thing I've ever seen. Just your ability to play a game at a higher level, playing on something that is more superior and faster, and coming down to a lower denominator is crazy. So I can only imagine when the Series X comes out and people are able to really take advantage of that 60 frames per second on that console and the parity that's not going to be there between consoles for the first couple of years.
Yo, them 1S players going to get ripped.
They going to get whooped, bro.
Yeah, it's not going to be fair.
Bad.
Yeah. Hey, guys, I do want to move on to the last topic because we're at 10:33 right now. So I want to. But that was a great discussion.
Well, you said we were going 3 hours today.
No, we're not doing 3 hours, man. That's not.
I mean, that's what I saw in the DM.
No, sir. I gotta get to bed, man. No.
I just want to say before we move on, me and Enrique played in PC too. We was giving it to him, man. Saying like, don't mess with. A lot of people say mouse and keyboard is where it's at. Like us controller guys
we
can
do
hang,
all right,
man.
We're holding our own.
Yep.
Yeah, we're definitely holding our own
today after this podcast.
No doubt, Forte. That's what Forte was supposed to play with us, and then he went missing.
Mm-hmm. You don't want to play into my skill-based matchmaking on PC. It's pretty bad.
Oh boy! All right,
I have a hard time over there, bro.
Yeah, I do want to get to the last topic of the evening. This is the meat and potatoes. This is the, I think, hottest topic right now, and we are
the only topic.
Yeah, we are joined by a Sony PlayStation rep, Jeremy. We specifically wanted you to come on the show to talk about this topic and also bring you back. We had a great time chatting with you last time when you were on the show. But Sony, good old Sony. Sony released a statement this week. After thorough evaluation, SIE has decided not to participate in E3 2020. We have great respect for the ESA as an organization, but we do not feel the vision of E3 2020 is the right venue for what we are focused on this year. And God damn it, Michael Pachter was actually right for once. He broke this. He actually broke this rumor, and we all laughed at him because Pachter's never right, and Pachter's back laughing at us. We're eating crow. But I want to go to you, Jeremy.
Okay.
Let me ask you, did you hear about this prior to the press release, or did you learn about this when the press release came out?
Actually, it was funny. I found out about it when Forte called me up.
Wow.
And he was, I was out in the field all day. I had not heard anything. Nothing had come down from the home office.
Wow.
And in fact, officially, I have not seen nothing from the home office has officially come to me, in terms of emails or anything. And after Forte gave me a call, and I was like, what? What? So after I got off the phone with him, I hopped online. I'm just like, oh, well, shit. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I had heard nothing. Now I did, last August, I talked to some of the higher ups that I could get in touch with, and and they were non-committal, nothing to say at the time, and at the time it was last August, so it was really too early to say anything anyway. So yeah, but I was surprised as anyone. I was surprised at anyone that, especially being a year of new consoles, that we weren't going to be at E3. But considering what I heard, how the ESA was going to be handling E3 this year, I'm also not surprised. So.
All right, so let me ask something. So I Jason Schreier is kind of saying that, I don't know the exact quotes, but I think Paul Tassi wrote an article about this particular news story. Oh, and actually, Paul Tassi says, according to industry insider Jason Schreier, he believes that despite what the statement says, the Sony statement, one of the core issues that Sony has with the show is working with ESA. So you're saying that potentially Sony had an issue the way E3 2020 was going to be handled this year, and what does that specifically mean? Like, how would they handle it differently compared to other E3s?
So, from what I had heard, this year is supposed to be very much social media influencer heavy and geared towards that culture. So you're going to see a lot of things about actively activating and engaging with maybe people in line and stuff like that, being very, instead of trade and industry friendly, more Joe Public, I've got a YouTube channel, and it's only me and 3 other people that are watching, kind of thing. So
I thought that's what Sony wanted, though, was more customer engagement out of E3.
Yes, we do, but I don't think that's the kind of engagement we're looking for. From what I think you're going to see us do more stuff like the PAX East and West, and something that isn't the biggest problem that I think that everyone's going to have with E3 this year is that it's going to be that older guy saying, look at me, I'm cool, look at all of this cool stuff that I'm doing, and showing that they're not cool. And that's where I think the problem is going to be. So
Interesting.
Yeah, I read something. I think it was from Jason Schreier, however you say his last name. But I think he was saying that a couple years ago there was like a memo that went around from the ESA saying they wanted to focus on celebrities and kind of like focus on getting those kind of people in for E3. But It was Sony and EA that wanted to focus more on fans and work on like fan experiences and things like that. And I know some people are like, EA said that, but like if you look at what EA has done in the past,
it's the reason why EA Play
is
a thing now.
Yeah, on that Saturday, they do a huge fan thing for that full day. Like that Saturday
Yeah.
before E3, they do a lot of fan stuff. It starts at like early in the morning all the way into like early evening, and they kind of sprinkle their trailers and announcements and stuff in between, but it's all fan base. And I thought, that
Yeah.
kind of made sense. Yeah.
And that kind of fan interaction is completely different than I think the way the ESA is looking to do their kind of thing. And again, being very much more influencer heavy. And that is the way. Now, granted, I haven't seen what the final, reports are like, what they're planning on doing with E3. But from what I heard, it's just going to be obnoxious Instagram and internet YouTube, small YouTube channel kind of irritating behavior instead of the more seasoned or professional, and just the people that actually care about actually want to do a professional job with it.
So Jeremy, it sounds more like a quality control type thing.
We very much, yeah. No, I mean, we very much want to. I mean, make no surprise. That's the reason why we do the state of plays now. It's similar to like Nintendo. It's all about being able to control the message and exactly how we want to present what we're doing. And I think that by having it so influencer heavy, I don't think that's the way they want to spread the message. They want it to be more organic, more gamer centric instead of influencer centric. So,
Jeremy, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, what's up?
It might be a tangent, but it's closely related. Can we safely read into this that unless the feud between Sony and the ESA is cleared up, Sony's not coming to any more E3s at all?
I think part of it is just the nature of E3. I mean, for us as gamers, E3 has always been like our mecca. It's the thing that as gamers we heard about, and that's where we want to go, and that's what we want to experience. What we experienced, or what we thought E3 was hasn't been that in the last 4 or 5 years, and a lot of it I think has to do. There's been a major shift in the feeling of the show since the show opened up to the general public.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
And I think that unless something changes, and I don't know, I'm not saying that they go back to being a trade show, but I think they either need to go all in one direction or the other is I think the biggest problem. Like, I'll be very honest, like 2 years ago, I was at E3 working, and this was 2 and 3 years ago actually. I was working at E3, and it was one of the first times that they opened it up to the general public, and it felt very obvious that they weren't prepared to have it open to the public because the setup of the floor was still set up very much like it were the trade for trade people instead of the public people, and so there was no proper flow. The lines were horrendously long because they didn't accommodate in terms of floor spacing that new audience. And again, as they shift, I really think that E3 should just go all public. Is really what I think they should go. Either that or just go back to all trade. So
let me ask you something, Jeremy. So I understand like the influencer things, but there's already influencers at E3. I guess what I'm trying to understand is the concern then that it's just open to all influencers, like whether you have like 3 subscribers, and then or like you said, maybe you have some console warriors coming out. I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to understand that because they are, I mean, technically, they are influencers that go to you that go to E3. And the other question I have is, is it like I heard them say they want to touch hundreds of fan events. Are they going to bring back PlayStation Experience? Are they going to you mentioned PAX. Are they going to do like PlayStation Experience at multiple, cities? are they going to be at Gamescom? They're going back to Tokyo Game Show.
I wish I knew. They've been very, very coy about all of that stuff. Shows like PAX and Gamescom, definitely. San Diego, I mean, we've had booths there too. Will we have a PlayStation experience? I hope so. I really do hope so. I think if there's a year to bring it back, this would be the year. But at the same time, both, the E3 stage show, the floor, the booth space that we had, and putting the PlayStation experience together, those are really, really expensive things to do. So, and yeah, I mean, I'm sure that the company can make their money back, by by selling systems, and it'll offset it all. But at the same time, I mean, they go all out with that stuff. So
Yeah.
it gets really, it's really big. Just out of curiosity, who on the panel, who's gone to E3 before?
I have. I've been there 3 times.
Okay.
I'm not. This will actually be my first one.
Okay.
Yep, same.
Very cool.
Same. First one.
Yeah, first one for me too. I guess it's interesting because I feel like I kind of do feel, and then open up to the panel, but I kind of do feel like perhaps this is maybe a mistake, and I only say this because you're launching a new console, PlayStation 5, right? And E3 is it still has a spotlight on it, right? I mean, it does. I mean, it still does, and I've heard the arguments of, oh well, you can still have your own event. I mean, EA's proven that they're not they do their own thing. I think B Money said the EA I forget what it's called, EA Play or something.
Play. It's the weekend before.
Yeah, and so and Activision has kind of done their own thing. So people have left. I mean, people have kind of left what we would look at traditional E3. And then if you think from a social media perspective, I mean, we saw the impact of just the logo reveal on social media. We saw Sony make noise at E3 without being at E3 last year. I mean, I think they put out a tweet or a press clipping, and it was all the buzz. I mean, so there is some precedent there, but I still can't. And maybe this is because like you said earlier, Jay, like E3 is kind of like the mecca for us in terms of gaming here in the U.S. in terms of trade shows. It's still hard for me to swallow or think that this isn't a mistake, because you are launching a PlayStation 5, a new console, and this would be the first time in Sony's storied making consoles that they're not going to be at E3, they're not the first time they're not going to be E3 revealing a console. And so I guess is that a missed opportunity? And then I do have another question for you, Jeremy. I'm trying to pick your brain a little bit. Are they going to, and I don't know if you've heard anything, are they going to reveal PlayStation 5 in February? Because there's rumors of that. There's that event, their month-long event in New York celebrating 25 years of PlayStation, which I think kicked off already. That goes to February. And then the rumor is that February 5th, I think it is, that Sony's going to have an event where they actually finally reveal the PlayStation 5. Have you heard anything about that event?
No, and that's the thing. They have the home office has been very, very quiet in terms of, here I am out in the field trying to field these questions about it, and they're not telling us anything. So and it's absolutely frustrating. The current rumor is the same that you guys have heard, but the home office hasn't said anything in either direction. If how legit that is, it
now
makes
let me ask you
sense.
this: is this normal? Is this like normal this time of year when they really just don't filter that information down? Because I know you get a lot of information, or do you think it's a lot to do with the fact that it's been a lot of change at the top of leadership? That's why a lot of the information hasn't been funneled down.
No, I think it's just them being controlling.
I think they're playing it close to the chest this time around.
Very, very close to the chest. That even though we are employees of PlayStation, they maybe don't feel that we need that level of information. which is frustrating.
I know what
But
that's like. Trust me.
Definitely.
Well, Jeremy, I mean, the one thing I've heard about, and this was said to us, and I won't say who said it, but I heard the NDAs for those who are developing for the PlayStation 5 are no joke. They're pretty ironclad. It's no joke.
Yeah, there are people that I've heard and that I know of that they are very swift. The legal team is very swift to make mention of their displeasure. So, I'm not surprised, that they haven't revealed anything to us.
Yeah.
Let me.
I'm sorry, Forte. I'll let you ask the question. I just want to go live chat. Lord Cognito's in the live chat. What's up, Cognito? Cog says the issue most have is not the disagreement with the ESA and Sony. Fair, but the fact that Sony has not had a fan, a fan presence in a long while, plus no E3 presence at all with PlayStation 5.
They were at Gamescom. They just didn't.
We didn't have a PlayStation experience, but we were very much at all of the major shows.
They were at Tokyo Game Show. They were everywhere. They just haven't talked about anything.
I really think that the difference is a more organic, natural fan presence by being on the stage, on the show floor for like a PAX is completely different than I think the influencer heavy E3. And I think that's where the difference lies. I think that's where the difference lies. And that's why I think, when they talk about the whole fan stuff, that's why they want to do more of these actual, traditional style conventions like a PAX.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm just playing devil's advocate here. But even PAX, has influencers too. I understand it's more of a fan experience.
The influencers that go to I guess the way I would look at that scenario is when you go to E3, everything you talk about is going to be scrutinized to the letter because every news publication is going to write about it. And then on top of that, if you got all the different influencers doing the same exact thing, because everybody pretty much has a voice when it comes to that, that's where they want to control that message compared to something like PAX. Yeah, it's still influence heavy, but you don't really see people going to PAX to basically report on what PlayStation's doing. Compared to E3, that's what you're doing. You're going to E3 to report on everything that's happening at E3 on top of just networking with other, it's all about networking when you go to E3. PAX is more of all these other places are more of the fan convent where we don't really care about the stuff that comes out of those events because we're not really giving you any trade secrets and stuff.
Yeah. And that's like those shows are like, let's be gamers, let's have fun, let's see a game that we have that we haven't, that's not on the sale, that's not on the floor yet, that's not in the stores yet. That it's like, oh my god, that's where the fans, an actual organic way of interacting with fans, as opposed to again an influencer kind of.
Yeah. Enrique, you got a super chat, bro.
Yes, I thank you. I just saw that. Big shout out to Glorious War. Thank you, sir, for the $2 super chat. It says this time, pre-last gen, everything was leaked.
That's true.
There was a lot of leaks last gen. I remember they leaked the specs of the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4.
The question I wanted to ask was, So we know Nintendo pretty much started this whole revolution, not going to E3, having they're still there, but they don't have a conference presence and stuff. Yeah. And what do you think of the idea? Because I was actually thinking about this when I was talking at work today with some other people. Sony, we know Nintendo pioneers a lot of different things. What do you think of the notion that Sony looked at what Nintendo did with the Switch? Didn't have any big presence. They just basically talked about it, but didn't show off any. They, didn't have no real presence there doing anything with it, and just did a direct and was able to be one of the fastest selling systems of generation without really doing any type of effort around it and just doing directs throughout the whole year talking about it. What do you think that probably had to do with them saying like, if Nintendo can do this, we feel like we got just as big of a brand, if not bigger. We could probably pull off something like that too.
Well, and a lot of that's the thing. Again, we as gamers view E3 as Mecca, but the reality is that in terms of its importance, really isn't necessary. It isn't as needed. You were talking about last generation, and even the last couple of years, everything always got leaked before the actual show event. The show itself. You don't. I mean, that's why print media is essentially dead. You don't need things tied to a time frame. As in the show itself to reveal this stuff.
Right.
You now have we have the state of play again, where we not only can reveal when we're ready, but also tailor the message exactly how we want it to be presented.
Let me jump in real quick too.
Yeah,
go ahead. I'm sorry, Jeremy. Go ahead. Keep going.
No, I was going to say, and that's one of the great things that Nintendo has done. They've managed to to control their narrative through their Nintendo Directs. So.
That last Nintendo Direct was fire. Loved it.
Most of them are fire because whenever they come out with a Nintendo Direct, Nintendo is going to be showing something that you haven't seen before. They're going to be, and it usually ends up being something that's not like some years out. It's like it's coming out in 3 or 4 months, or at the most a year. I actually liked to what Jeremy was talking about. I made a video about that earlier this week, and I was just like, this is really where I think the industry is going. Nintendo showed the way. And initially when Nintendo did that, everybody was like, man, Nintendo being weird
Slow-mo,
as usual.
I just want to interrupt you real quick. I mean, I understand Nintendo kind of blazed the trail of not being at E3, but they still have a presence there. Like I'm still shocked that Sony's not going to be on the floor. Like
but the thing is, we don't know what the full plan is for this year. Like to go to Lord Cognito's point about doing something for the fans, they may have something like that in mind. They may have a big reveal or a big show like a PSX, the equivalent of XO, set to go sometime this year, and to compensate. We don't quite know yet. Now, not being there at E3 is a loss, but they could make that up in other things. They can make it up by having the state of plays have way more information or way bigger reveals than what we've seen from them so far.
What was Sony's biggest game that released last year?
Days Gone?
Probably Death Stranding.
Death Stranding. Okay.
What happened on June 11th last year at E3? Death Stranding had a release gameplay for the first time, the 11-minute trailer. And what happened? That was the whole conversation for that whole E3.
Well,
let me jump in real quick for a second, y'all. So talking about NDAs and stuff. So I think the first thing I have to say is that I am not officially associated with Sony in any way. Officially, I'm not associated with.
You're not making a PS5 game. We got you.
Anyway, none of that. I'm not affiliated with any of these companies in any official capacity. But my organization, we definitely write software for multi-billion-dollar corporations. I'll put it like that. And I can share with you that there's two things, right? To a business, there's two sides. There's the business strategy, which you get together in the boardroom, you get together with business analysts, and you say, here's our strategy going forward for our business. And then there's a second component of that, which is public relations, which is how do we reveal to the public what our strategy is. And a big part of moving forward with any business is preparing your user base for your message. And it makes perfect sense. Well, first, let me say there is no such thing as a company, a for-profit business does not say things like, well, they did it, we can do it too, because we just as bad as they are. That never happens. There's always research and analysis that goes into, is this a sound business decision or not? Is this the best use of our funds or not? And a potential danger is if your marketplace is not ready for your new message, You do not want to empower a bunch of randoms to spit venom at your brand when you haven't had an opportunity to prepare the marketplace for your message. So as an example, this is just an example, like picked out the sky. If I'm going to release all of my exclusives on PC and I know that that will not be received well by my fan base, I'm going to need months to prepare my fan base for this message. I don't want a bunch of randoms now being highlighted at a trade show.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Are you saying that Sony's going to release first party on
Not
PC?
At all. No, I don't know. My point is just as an example, there are plenty of business reasons why having a bunch of randoms given a voice at a trade show will be a turnoff to an organization. That's all I'm trying to say.
That's true.
I mean, that makes sense.
It's the same way when PlayStation said that they would have exclusives, for PS5, and then you read publications where they try to flip that on Sony for not being, consumer friendly, or flip it the other way for Microsoft for saying like, why no exclusives? I'm going out spending all this money on the console.
Yeah, those.
You know what I mean? So you don't want that narrative to be out there because it can go either way. So you want to try your best at the end of the day to control that message.
I mean, that's a great point. Eric, man, please chime in. What are your thoughts on this, man?
I don't know, man. Like I said, I think what Optimus Code was saying is basically right. It's kind of where my line of thinking has been, is like, we don't know how, tradition can change until somebody decides they're going to change it. And for whatever their reason, it's not like they're just sitting back and saying, yeah, well, like the whole narrative of, well, they're scared and they're shook and this and that. No, every move that is made is usually a calculated move by a business. And, if you stop thinking in a console war term and think a business term, it's like, for whatever reason, they don't feel like they need to rock with E3. They feel that they have a new path that they want to, that they want to blaze. And I kind of think that they're thinking more like on a global scale than just, one market type scale.
Yeah,
and everybody keeps going to this thing where E3 is big in North America, but if you're thinking global, they look at themselves as a global brand. They're thinking in terms of McDonald's and Coca-Cola now, not just, in like one realm. That's kind of how I look at it.
Yep, and like Jeremy said, the money, like E3 isn't free for them, right? So they're gonna think the money that we spend at E3, could that money be better invested somewhere else for whatever our strategy is for the next quarter or year, whatever it is?
Well, the thing is, what did I don't think we got the numbers for Death Stranding, but for Days Gone and stuff, what did they sell? Like, what numbers came out for those games?
I know it sold a couple million. Death Stranding, not Death Stranding, but Days Gone did sell a couple million.
It was like our third or fourth best new IP this generation for us.
So think about that. So you, ever since E3 of last year, because God of War came out before, you had a game that sold 15 million copies because it was Spider-Man, and everybody loved Spider-Man. That sold, didn't have to go to E3 to show it off anymore because they did it a lot over the course of the couple of years before that. Then you had Days Gone, couple million. Death Stranding, more than likely going to be a couple million. They're looking at it like our stuff still sold very well, and we're happy with the performance of that stuff. And we didn't even have to spend the extra buttload of money that we normally would spend to showcase those same games. What do you think? Do you think Last of Us is going to suffer in sales because they don't show it off again at E3 right before? Well, actually, it'll be out already. But do you think that will suffer because they didn't have a PSX over the holiday to talk about it again? What about, Dreams and stuff like that? I think they're in a situation where they just feel like our stuff's going to sell regardless. And as long as we keep the message the way it needs to be and consistent throughout the year, because I think that's their new strategy now. We're not going to try to hit you with a haymaker once or twice or three times a year. We're going to try to give you these little gold nuggets that's going to keep the conversation going throughout the calendar year. So anytime we feel like we need to speak to something, we can do it at the push of a button. And I think that's the new strategy for Sony going through the rest of this year.
And like Cognito was saying in the chat, the thing is, and like yeah, Enrique, you said it too. It's like as a fan, I'm disappointment, and I feel the disappointment.
Right.
So I think that, and like they tried to adjust that, right? Like we're going to be at these fan events. They haven't said if there's going to be a PlayStation experience or any of that. But the point is, even though their titles will sell, and even though they're coming from a position of strength in the marketplace, they still want to keep the goodwill that they have gained and the mind share that they have gained from the gaming community. They don't want to risk losing that, especially now. So as long as they make good on those fan promises, I think they'll be okay. It's just without them announcing on how they're planning to do that, just some vague will be at all these fan events. As a gaming enthusiast, it is a little disheartening to not see them there and to not even know what we can get from them, if anything.
Yeah, and when we were talking about this on Prime Time with Boom, so shout out to you, Boom, because you probably listen to it either now or later. We talked about that exact same thing, and the one thing I talked about was, look, they can't do this. They can't consistently do this. You know, this is something that fans really look forward to. E3 is one of those big events that's like it's marked on the calendar for everybody. Now, I'm not saying they have to go to E3 ever again, but they have to do something big for their fans, because the difference between this generation and last generation is a good 30 million consoles being sold, because PlayStation's at 106, Xbox is rumored to be around 45 to 50. Last generation, it was neck and neck, 83 to 86 or 85 or 80 to 86 million. So 35 million of those people left Xbox and went to PlayStation. Those aren't loyal people. So the more you're quiet and the more you're not giving a message out to your fans or the people that support you, it gives someone else an opportunity to come through the backside and actually pick you up and say, hey, I like what they're doing over there. So they need to be careful. I think they're playing a very coy game right now, where they feel like they can get away with this because they know they're going to be supported in the back end, because I don't think this is going to hurt them at all. I still think they're going to lead the next generation when it comes to sales, because I don't think Microsoft really cares about sales when it comes to hardware. They care about the services, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the more and more they don't talk about the things that's happening with the PlayStation 5, and Microsoft keeps doing the things that they're doing, all they're doing is gathering goodwill. Right now, Microsoft's the only talk of the show when it comes to hardware that's going to be at E3, with the exception of if the Switch, Nintendo comes out and talks about the Switch Pro. And even then, that's going to be in a direct. It's not going to be on stage or anything live for people to like put their hands and stuff on, unless they do it on a show floor. So they just need to be careful overall. But I think this is going to be something they want to do for the near future, but they have to start thinking about their fans, because the fans they're the ones that supported them and got them to 106, and they want to see Sony in some type of event, because it's all about just being around other gamers, and that's what Sony wants to do with their fans going forward.
But I think what people are trying to do is make Sony waver. You know what I mean? I think
true.
You know what I mean? For the most part, if we go back to early in this generation, you know what I mean, it was you know, Xbox kind of sitting on the wayside. The only reason why we're trying to put all this pressure on Sony is because Microsoft comes out at the Game Awards and shows their new console. You know what I mean? We already knew that the
we want to
Scorpion was coming. You know what I mean? They had already announced that the year prior. But the only reason why we're putting this pressure on them now is because they showed the console early. You know what I mean? When they announced the Xbox One S, I was in the crowd. You know what I mean? And then they talked about, you know, the X prior to that being a thing. You know what I mean? They announced that the S was coming out, and then they also announced that, you know, they talked about the X. So everybody knew that the following, you know what I mean, E3, the X was coming. And they did the same exact thing where they announced Project Scorpio was coming. We all thought that, you know what I mean, the following E3 is when we see Project Scorpio. Or the X, you know what I mean, the Anaconda.
Yeah, the Anaconda.
Yeah,
and they just happened to announce it earlier, so they put that pressure out there, and now everybody's like, oh, what Sony's gonna do? What Sony's gonna do?
Yeah,
and that's why
been chilling on the beach
And that's why I said it's not 8 Mile. Like, it's not like an Eminem, Nick Cannon beef where it's like, oh, he gonna respond next week, right?
Right.
Like you stick to your plan. Like, just because they decided to go early or they decided to go when they went, okay, fine, they went. We're still the market leader. We'll go when we're ready to go. We have a plan. That's what we're gonna work. And that's why I said people are too jaded by this console war thing, where it's like we got to fire back. We need this information. We need this information so we can keep beefing with each other.
Right.
People
have to remember that.
Chat, bro.
Yeah, I gotta thank you, Optimus. I gotta take care of the super chat. Reformed Tone with the $5 super chat. Thank you. Says they're probably skipping E3 merely due to developer acquisition, Insomniac last year, and potentially new dev this year budgeting.
I don't think that has anything to do with it.
Nope.
That's probably a different part of the budget altogether.
Yeah,
for
definitely.
acquisitions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But people have to remember that we're only in January. You know what I mean? When they announced the PlayStation 4, they announced in February, and everybody's trying to hold PlayStation to, you know what I mean, revealing the PS5 in February. But until they come out and say what they're going to be doing, like, I'm not gonna like hold their feet to the fire to say like, oh, well, you got to be at 3. You know, you haven't announced any fan events, this, that, and the third. It's like, okay, I'm gonna wait until to see what they're actually rolling out.
Right.
And that's where my head is too. Be like I said, if we find ourselves like around, post E3 or whatever the case, and they haven't said anything yet, then we start taking them to task. I mean, even before then, that's still late in the game. But I'm saying, you said it's January, right?
Right.
You can't sit there and be like, oh, and you have all these accusations and claims like, that they're shook, they're scared, they're not firing back, they're not doing this and that because they're not moving in the time frame that you want them to move, so you can get your YouTube video out. You know what I'm saying? That's not how this whole thing works. And like I said, as a fan, am I disappointed they won't be at E3 in any kind of presence? Yeah, but that's because I'm a selfish gamer and I want them to be there so I can be a part, so they can be a part of the thing, right?
Yep.
But somebody was saying to me the other day, like, well, it's all about the hype. And hype, I said, no. As gamers, we get hype almost every day by somebody dropping something on Twitter.
Right.
And then run with that. You don't need E3 to. You don't have to
tell
wait
that.
to get the hype.
A breeze comes in and we have a hard on. I mean,
you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
So
it's like, E3 is still. I'm not saying E3 is irrelevant, but E3 is not the whole show anymore.
Hey, Jeremy, really quick, is that PlayStation month-long thing that's supposed to start this month? Is that a real thing that's been confirmed, or is that still a rumor? Because that could clear up a lot of stuff.
They started it on Monday.
I heard they started it on Monday or Tuesday, the 14th, whatever the 14th, on Tuesday. That's what I heard. They didn't send any of us over there, so
because I haven't seen anything come out of it. Like what's the news?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything from it either.
Okay, thanks, y'all.
Jeremy, so did you? I think I asked you this earlier. I don't remember if you confirmed this or not. But are they having that February event?
That hasn't been confirmed. Nothing's been confirmed on that. So,
gotcha.
But, so now we've put all this pressure on them. So now if they come out in February and they announce the PS5, you know what I mean, that just gets the ball rolling. So now everybody's gonna be like, all right, Microsoft, you say something now. You know what I mean? Like, all right, Microsoft,
exactly.
Microsoft says something like, now it's on your turn. You gotta tell us something else new. Like,
you
know what I mean? Everybody gotta be patient because once that information comes out, the ball is rolling.
Right.
And unlike, you know what I mean, Microsoft, you know what I mean, they don't have like these tempo games coming out at the beginning of the year. You know what I mean? They still have to market, you know what I mean, the exclusive games that they have coming out. And all those games are big AAA games. You know what I mean? They don't want to put a cloud over the stuff that's still coming out on the console that you have right now.
Right.
And definitely, and that's one of the big things too, that especially as I go to stores, one of the big things I have to make sure I let employees know of is, while it's great to talk about the PlayStation 5, there's still a great number of games coming out on the PlayStation 4 from both first and third party. So I think that some of it is also why it's been so quiet lately in terms of PlayStation 5 news, is that we don't want to overshadow some of the great stuff we still have coming out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I can confirm that. He came on our conference call and laid the task on us. Don't you guys?
Don't talk about
But see,
PS5.
It was
but
funny.
it's true. B made a good point with that. It's like, yeah,
It's
people
true.
getting that there's some big games still dropping. Everybody's ready to move on.
Look, and the one thing I want to say is, well, people like you said, the whole pressuring stuff like that. I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks. Microsoft set a narrative that everybody wants Sony to live up to. And I always tell people, Microsoft did what Xbox, not Microsoft. Xbox did what they had to do. This is something they had to do in order to get the conversation started, because up to this point, there was a lot of people that were like, I don't need an Xbox. I could go to PC. They didn't give people a reason to want an Xbox.
But Forte, that's what they want, though. Like, Microsoft doesn't care either way.
They don't care either way, but guess what? The reason, like, I've been telling people for months, I don't care about getting the next Xbox, because they truly don't care about selling the system, because I truly felt like they did not care about the experience of you owning a console, and they felt like they were just giving up the console space. But that kind of changed a little bit, because now just the little things they've been talking about, the arrogance that Microsoft has been coming out saying the stuff they've been saying, talking about the stuff they've been talking about, being aggressive. That's the Microsoft that I loved during the 360 era. It was willing to just say what they needed to say and not worry about what somebody else was thinking or what someone else would do. Phil Spencer, just as little people poo-poo it, but just putting a chip of the SOE on his Twitter account, that's something that I actually like that they did, because it shows confidence that you feel like your system is going to be something to reckon with. You don't care what anybody else thinks about. And that's why I did not want to buy an Xbox this gen, because I felt like Microsoft didn't care. But guess what? Now it seems like they do. And now everybody's transferring all that hope to Sony and saying, Sony, what are you going to do? I keep telling people, Sony ain't got to do what Microsoft is doing, because Sony set a precedent years ago that people trust, and they believe that they're going to bring out the stuff that they're going to bring out, and it's going to be amazing. Now, that only goes so far. You can't get all the way up into the 9th hour before the system comes out to start talking about it, but they're on goodwill right now. But Microsoft has to do this stuff. So don't expect Sony to do it, because they're not in the same position that Microsoft is in, trying to sell a new console.
Well, I think they both have.
But look, let me say one thing really quick. Y'all won't take but a second. I agree with you, but I still want to caution what you said a little bit, because even if Microsoft hadn't announced the Series X, I would still be upset that Sony wasn't at E3.
I know. I'm upset. Sony. I'm upset that Sony's not at E3, because I'm like B there. I'm selfish. I'm going to E3. I wanted to do. There is something about sitting in an auditorium. Like, dude, I go to conferences every year. I've never been to an E3, but I know what the atmosphere could be like, because when we're sitting in those rooms with Microsoft and Sony, and they're sitting on the stage talking about their stuff, and they're talking about what they're bringing out, taking
a picture on your phone and stuff.
yeah, did that too. But I mean, Jeremy, he was there. He was part of this before. That is electric, dude. It is something about being around like-minded people that love what you love, and you're rooting and chanting for the team that's on the stage that you want them to succeed. And I'm gonna miss that about Sony not being there this year. That's what I miss. But ultimately, like everybody said, they don't have to be there, because they can literally create waves by just doing something on their own, and it doesn't have to be at E3. And that's unfortunate, but that's the reality of what the situation now is.
One of the things that
I think go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Real quick, like one of the things that got me last year when the first year that we weren't at E3, everyone was just like, oh, Microsoft, it's Microsoft's, they were showing off everything, and everyone. And all PlayStation had to do was rely on our third party. And, they drop a trailer for Final Fantasy VII, and all of a sudden, PlayStation is back in the discussion. It was just like, oh, we didn't even have to be there. Shit. Okay. They did, we got that. So, all right, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I was just going to agree with a lot of things you guys are saying, especially to what Forte was saying about Microsoft's recent marketing. I feel like ever since the VGAs, they've really been hitting some good points. What I really noticed and really enjoyed from Phil Spencer on Twitter was right after the announcement that Sony wasn't going to be at E3, he immediately started tweeting about Xbox being at E3 and talking up a lot of the things that they're trying to do. I think that's smart because like you're taking advantage of a particular situation. There are a segment of people or gamers who are disappointed in that news, and now you're kind of filling that void. It's smart. It's smart marketing. It's smart business. But then at the same time, kind of like what B Money was saying, when Sony does come out with revealing the PS5, that doesn't mean that Microsoft has to then change massive plans. Doing a tweet is simple, it's free, it's easy. Deciding to do a impromptu reveal of something just because your competition did something, that's a whole different story. Because you got, and this is kind of like where I was getting into before, where I was saying that, like, I'm not saying E3 is unnecessary, but in 2020, in the age of social media, where the internet is at everyone's fingertips, you can go do a reveal at any point in time. You don't need to rush your developers and say, "Hey, look, I know you're working, but can you get this trailer ready by June? We need this by June so we can reveal it. We need you to do this at this time." Like now, where you got Nintendo has their directs, PlayStation has State of Play, Xbox has Inside Xbox. They got their own events. You can say, "Hey, look, whenever you are ready to show it, I'm not rushing you, but take your time." I'm not telling you take your time.
That's what she said.
Anything. But just when you are ready to reveal your game, go ahead. Let us know when you're ready. We'll do a State of Play. We'll have it all set for you. It could be in May. It could be in August. It could be in February. Doesn't matter. But just as long as you're ready, we have a platform for you to reveal that. And that's where it's going now. It used to be in the past where it's just like it would just be at these big events, Gamescom, E3. Everything is waiting till then. I'm glad that when Phil Spencer came out and said we're no longer just going to wait until E3. Every time there's a big event going on and we're there, we're going to be showing you something new. That's excellent. Whether it's something brand new, whether it's revealing more of something they've already shown us, that's great that you're showing Xbox Game Studios games at every single time, because that's way better than just waiting until E3 and you're sitting on stuff. Meanwhile, your fan base is just like, "Yo, I'm fed up. I'm about to give up on you guys," you know? And you're doing that keeps them engaged. Them stopping the whole, "Well, we want to show anything too far out, Scalebound, Fable Legends," like, get over that stuff, okay? People want to have something to look forward to. Showing Everwild, even though it's nowhere near being ready. I don't care about Everwild, but there are people who love Rare games and say, "Hey, look, I like that." Showing Hellblade 2, even though it's not coming out this year. Excellent. Great. So much hype got, was created off of that. That's the kind of stuff that you got to do to keep your fan base engaged, keep the community hyped up, so that even though your games may not be ready, they have something that I might go ahead and buy that Xbox Series X anyway. Why are you buying it? "Oh, I'm buying it for Hellblade." "Oh, I'm buying it for Fable." I'm buying it for whatever else they're going to show throughout the year. Same thing with Sony. Like this, they don't need to rush things just because Microsoft came out early with everything at the VGAs. "Oh, you guys got to respond to CES." Well, what if everything they've been working on, they already had a timetable for February or March? We're supposed to go to their developers and say, "Hey, look, I know we said February. We're going to need that about 3 weeks early." For what? You don't need to do that. It's not necessary.
Yeah.
So people just gotta chill out with the fanboy stuff, the console war stuff. Like, it's just This isn't. That's not how business works. Period.
No.
And
I think
if Sony comes out and at February and they announce that they've got these games coming out and they announce some new acquisitions and they say they're not going to be at E3, but 2 weeks later, come to this event in San Francisco, all is well in the world. You know what I mean? Like
exactly. Yeah.
They can make up for all this this bad will that people are trying to give them because they haven't announced anything yet.
Yeah.
Matter moments. So
yeah,
I want to address something in chat. Shadow Spade said I'm kind of contradicting myself by saying it's. I don't want to say E3 is unnecessary, but every point I make alludes to just that. No, every point I'm making is saying that they don't have to put everything at E3. They can still hold at E3 and have something there, or they can still do something fan based at E3 the way EA does, and still do something there. What I'm saying is that if you look at Nintendo's directs, the Nintendo Direct they had at last E3 was not as good as the direct they had before that in last spring.
Yeah.
Like you still can go ahead.
Wild, man.
You got to do it, man.
I don't know what happened. You can still.
Forte's being silly in the live chat, Slow-mo.
Is your Herbert? Oh my god. Yeah. Wow, man. But I'm not. It's not. You don't have to. Everything doesn't have to be black and white. Just because they don't have to show everything at E3 doesn't mean E3 is unnecessary and should go away. No, that's no. It serves a purpose. It's just not as important as it used to be. Because in the age of YouTube, where you can get 1 million views on a YouTube video revealing a game, where you can go on Twitter and announce something and it break the internet.
That logo had like 5 million views on Instagram or something crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's you don't have to do everything at E3 anymore. I'm not saying E3 is pointless.
Jeremy was proud of that. He came when our thing was like, "Hey, y'all got an Instagram post out of us with a logo."
That's the most information you'll get.
Yeah, he said when it comes to when it comes to PlayStation, that's all the information you get is a logo.
I think One Bad Mother summed it up in the chat the best. He said Sony will be fine, but gamers can still be disappointed for the death of E3.
That is very true.
Well, if E3 dies, don't blame Sony, blame the ESA. And if it dies, it's going to be for multiple things that the ESA has screwed up on why E3 is gone. It's not because these platform holders have changed. It's because the ESA is really incompetent.
Yeah, because let's be real for a second. It's like, E3 is still together. It's still like a thing. It's not really the whole anymore because that kind of like the wrong thing. EA bounced back. Microsoft, why would we be there to get our message? Can allude back to what like Slow-mo was saying and kind of, pull from what Bad Mother said. He said, E3 is like Christmas for gamers. That kind of alludes back to what Slow-mo was saying. Like there was a time where everything had to be ready for that month because that's how the message got out. So it very much felt like, gamer Christmas because everything happened on that one particular month, just like Christmas with, for kids, right? But now it's sort of parsing off because there's so many avenues and there's so many ways to mess now. So many so you kind of walk down it.
Hey, you're bonding, man.
Man, you sound like the robot from Short Circuit right now.
Well,
Johnny Five alive.
Stay alive.
Yeah, I don't know. My connection's dropping in and out. But anyway, I'm about to bounce out anyway.
No doubt,
I gotta
be
up early, so
yeah.
No doubt. Know how to end it. Enrique don't know how to end the show.
Hey, I'm trying to, man. But Slow-mo keeps talking. Blame him.
So anyway, but I'll catch you guys later. Hey, Alvin, great having you on. Jeremy, great having you on. I'll catch you guys later.
Do your outro, brother. We want to know where you at.
I'm on Twitter, man. EC Jackson with an X. Bouncing in and out. That's where you can find me.
Trolling people on Twitter. That's what he does best.
We said you turned to a transformer, E.
It's terrible, man. Shout out to Comcast.
Yeah, no doubt, man. All right, E.
All right, guys.
All right, man.
Peace out, man.
Now, there's some definitely great points, guys, by the panel here, and it's going to be interesting to see. I think, like B Money said, like ultimately, like I think like I said, we're disappointed because we're gamers. We want to see him there, but I mean, I don't think we could take him to task just yet until we actually see what ends up happening over the next couple months. So,
yeah.
Look, your boy, BG said that Sony is the lifeblood of E3 and is dead.
I would argue that that ESA needs Sony more than Sony needs ESA.
I agree.
That's
the one thing I want E3 to do, it's a myriad of things they need to do, but man, being in LA every year, they should find a way. I mean, it's probably too late now, but to move that venue around, because I think it would just give a boost to the overall feel of E3 if it was just in different places every once in a while.
Although I agree with that, it
Like
feels
PAX.
like the ESA is so far removed from that kind of thinking.
Yeah.
Because like for them wanting to add more celebrities to it for no reason whatsoever, even celebrities aren't gamers, just adding, it's like, yeah, you're in LA, so there's celebrities all over the place. Of course, like they're trying to leverage where they are.
Relevant.
Yeah.
Didn't they say they were going to make it look more of like a festival this year?
I did hear something similar to that, but I don't know where they're going. But what they need to be doing is making sure they don't put people's personal information on a public web server. That's what they need to be doing.
Slummo, that's a great point, by the way, because it's interesting. They addressed Sony not being at E3, right?
Sure did.
But they haven't addressed the doxing situation that happened last year, where they somehow the numbers, contact information of journalists, people attending E3 was compromised. I mean, I know journalists, like Tony Polanco, like people were calling him, random people were calling his cell phone. And
you know what? And I want to clarify something real quick, Enrique. It wasn't like they got hacked. There are some people who had this idea that like they didn't get hacked. They actually did this themselves. Like I'm a network engineer. I work in networks. There's zero reason to have personal information like that on a publicly accessible server in your network. You have a DMZ where you have like a selection, a sub network, a selection of servers, systems that are public facing that you want people to be able to access, like your web page. To have a link to a web page on a web server available with that information on it, there's zero reason for that. That should have been on a private network, on a private shared server. And if anyone needed access to that kind of information, it should have been provided to them privately in a different way. To have that kind of information out there for anyone for years, this apparently was going on and just no one recognized it until someone finally said, wow, I could just go on their webpage and just click this Excel spreadsheet and I got everybody's info.
There were phone numbers, emails.
What? Like, how dumb do you have to be to do something like that?
Oh my goodness, man.
And I really want to go in on, because this is all their own fault. Like, this is all to their own doing. They lost whoever was running the ESA. He got ousted for being a humongous douchebag who was pitting employees against one another for sport and all kinds of other stuff. Like, there's a whole report about that.
People hated working. Variety did a piece on the ESA, and internally they are a mess.
It's a huge mess, and they still have not hired someone to take over.
Yeah, they haven't hired executive director.
It's ridiculous. Yeah,
that's a mess. But I do want to go ahead and wrap up the show, guys. We're at the 11:30 hour here, and I just want to say, Jeremy, man, hopefully we hear some you soon, man, because I'm anxious to see what the PS5 has in store for us and potentially what games are being made. I know that there's exclusive content being developed for PS5 at launch, and so I'm interested. You say yeah, so that further confirms. Well, I know people that are working on stuff, so I mean, but that's what I'm looking forward to, man. And as a gamer, that's what I'm excited about. So, But yeah, I want to go ahead and
PC Master Race though.
You know what, man? I'd be happy if Sony brought their first party to PC, man. I'd be excited.
That'd be great. God of War running at 100 frames.
What? Can you imagine? Oh my goodness, a little ray tracing.
Those Valkyrie fights would be a lot easier.
Right. Yeah, right. Sprinkle a little ray tracing in there, you know.
Right.
But no, I want to thank the panel, and I want to give a big shout out to Optimus Code, who was a first time guest on the show. Optimus, hey man, first of all, thank you so much for coming on, and really thank you for your insight in game development, man. That was really very insightful. And dude, man, we got to get you back on sometime again soon.
Man, more than happy to. I appreciate the invite, and sorry I kept taking us on so many tangents, man. But it was just a good conversation.
No doubt, man. And please let everyone know where they can find you, man.
That's not important, man. Just happy to be here with y'all.
No doubt, man. I hear you.
You can find him on Twitter.
Right.
Stop.
You can find him on Twitter. On Twitter, talking mess.
Yeah. And also, Jeremy, man, thank you again, bro. It's a pleasure having you on, man. We always enjoy when you come on. This is your second time, and definitely appreciate giving us a little insight into what's going on with Sony. And if you're open to sharing where people can find you, man, please go ahead and do so.
Actually, I don't. I mean, I have some Twitter stuff, but yeah, I don't do the social media kind of stuff. So, I'm around.
All right, no doubt, man. No doubt. But Slow-Mo, Mr. Slow-Mo.
What's up, bro?
The pot stirrer. I
saw you on that.
I saw you on FC's podcast, man, stirring the pot a little bit. But please go ahead. Let me know they can find you, man.
Shout out to that drop in.
Yeah, shout out to FC Violent and his podcast. I was on there Monday night. It's Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern. It's a pretty cool show. All those guys are really awesome. I appreciate the invite. I just had to come in and drop kick FC in the throat and just have a little fun. So it was awesome. But yeah, you guys can catch me on my own YouTube channel, Slow-Mo Backslap. And on Twitter, same name. I'm usually on there just, asking very general questions, making very general statements, and people taking them all out of context and getting all bent out of shape. But I enjoy doing that, and great show tonight, and I'm out.
All right, man, awesome. And B Money.
Yo.
What's going on, man? Let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, man, you can find me on Twitter, same name. Be Money 101, and I'm here every Wednesday night, man. So make sure y'all come through next week. I'm sure we'll have some great topics, great conversation to talk about. Hopefully, Sony comes out and not something, and we'll have something to talk about.
Awesome, man. No doubt.
You can see him on the playground too on 2K.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm definitely there every day, man.
No doubt.
If you want to find B Money, go on 2K and go to the playground. Go into the park.
Yes,
That's
sir.
Find them.
Yep. And last but not least, Gaming Forte, Mr. Forte.
What's up, man?
Let everyone know they can find you, sir.
Oh, man. First of all, appreciate everybody in here. Jeremy for always coming through when I need him to come through. That's my man's. Love him to death. Optimus, nice to meet you, brother. Really nice insight. Glad to have you on here, man. Definitely got to get you back again. But for myself, Gaming Forte everywhere. YouTube and Twitter, and back in making videos, man. Put a video yesterday, got a video going up tomorrow at 8:00. Yesterday video was about Sony not being at E3 and the repercussions of that. The video tomorrow, Microsoft, what do they need to do to capitalize on Sony not being there, and what my thoughts on that should be. So check that video out. I'm taking a slow-mo backslap approach. I'm gonna fight him at 8:00 in the morning to see who get more views. So make sure.
Well, it's definitely gonna be you tomorrow because I ain't got nothing. But no. I got some ideas, but not tomorrow.
Yeah, but yeah, check that out. First thing in the morning, 8 a.m. And also not breakfast with Moon, Primetime Gaming. Mondays at 8 p.m. with my man Boom, and that's always a good time in Crossfire on Fridays at 7:00 with Mooch.
Are you gonna be there, Crossfire?
Listen, man. Listen. I
feel like me and Slow-Mo are there more than you are.
Listen. I got ringed out by not only Slow-Mo, by the Gaka, the Luca, Mama Luca was ringing me out about that too. So I apologize. I needed to do better and I'm just gonna say it now in front of everybody. There was moments where I just assumed that people just thought I was working and I just didn't make it to shows.
Why would you?
Listen. I'm gonna absolutely do better by that now by informing people if there's stuff going on. I'm not going to be able to make it because it's not fair to people like Enrique to put on these shows and expect me to be here. And I don't even let the man know I'm not coming. So I apologize. That will not happen going forward. And I will be on Crossfire this Friday, and I will be on Breakfast with Boom or Prime Time Gaming on Monday. But you got my word. I will always let people know going forward. Yeah, I'm sorry. And I'm a bigger man because of it.
Dude, no worries, man. It's all good, Forte. It's all good, man. It. All right. Big shout out to everyone in the live chat, guys. Thank you so much. We always appreciate the support. Hit that like buttons. If you're new to the show, have a subscribe. Subscribe and hit that bell notification so you know when we go live. And on occasion, I'll upload some content or do some rap rants. But
I'm shocked we didn't get one this week.
Nah, man, I had to save it for the show Wednesday. Plus, I was been busy. So
one bad mother says Enrique should drink before Crossfire more often.
I need your Herbert the Pervert voice, sir. Let's go.
Ooh, I don't even know what that sounds like.
You never watched Family Guy a day in your life?
Some of that. So weird, man. All right, on that note, we're out of here. We'll see you guys next week, Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Everyone, hey, have a great rest of the week. Enjoy some gaming. I'm trying to wrap up Days Gone, and I'm enjoying it, but I do have one minor complaint. That the NPCs that I save that are stranded in cars, it's always the same guy. What the hell?
I'm stranded.
It's the same guy. Did I just say wearing different clothes? On that note,
Enrique is limited with the hardware. You know that if it was on next gen, it would be different people. But.
Yeah, so it actually would be
limited by Hajima's vision.
Yeah. Yeah, and those NPC faces look like faces from Fallout 4, so...
Oh, man, not the ham faces.
Yes, ham faces. All right, guys, we're out. Enjoy the rest of the week. Enjoy your time gaming. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.
Giggity, giggity.